Chapter 3:11. When the 8 demonic cultivators saw that Jiu Fei was able to defeat the soul-chasing nail with just a finger, they knew that the person in front of them was not easy to deal with. Although the soul-chasing nail was not a powerful magic weapon, the fact that the other party had destroyed it so easily made everyone's expression turn serious. Attack! The short slouching man with a gloomy expression waved his hand, and a small flag that was shrouded in black chi appeared in front of him. At this time, the other 7 young cultivators also made their move. 8 small flags appeared, and each small flag was shrouded in a layer of hazy demonic light. Moreover, they quickly expanded, and a vast amount of demonic chi surged out, trapping Jiu Fei. In an instant, the sky turned dark, and the sun and moon lost their light. The 8 demonic flags suddenly grew 10 feet long, and endless demonic chi surged out from them, covering the sky and the earth. What the hell is this? Jiu Fei crossed his arms in front of his chest and calmly looked at these fellows. He did not immediately make a move. The demonic aura that surged over from all directions was blocked by the 5 elemental aura that came out of his body. Kaka. Kid, accept your fate. No one can come out of our 10,000 demonic formation alive. A gloomy voice came out from the surging demonic chi. The voice was erratic, and no one knew where it came from. The 8 demonic cultivators had already concealed themselves in the inky black demonic chi the moment they summoned their demonic chi. Hearing this, they burst into laughter. 10,000 demonic formation? Jiu Fei could not help but want to laugh. Just the name alone was enough to scare a lot of people. However, this demonic formation did not seem to live up to its name. Jiu Fei found that although the demonic chi around him was surging violently, emitting an endless demonic aura, and the temperature around him plummeted, it did not seem to hurt him at all. This time, Jiu Fei was a little careless. He allowed the 8 Devil Dao cultivators from the 6 Paths Devil Palace to trap him in the demonic array. Furthermore, the demonic array had just been activated and its might had yet to be unleashed. Dance of the Demons! A loud roar rang out from within the demonic chi. Following that, Jiu Fei's expression no longer looked as relaxed as before. He could sense that the demonic formation that was trapping him was beginning to change. A great force was being exerted from all directions, pressing down on him. The demonic flags were faintly discernible within the demonic chi. As they swayed, it seemed as if countless demonic shadows rushed out from the flags and pounced into the demonic chi. Demonic howls that caused one's heart to palpitate rang out from all directions. Within the demonic chi, faint and illusory demonic figures began to appear. Each demonic figure emitted an evil and powerful aura. Suddenly, a demonic shadow silently pounced out of the demonic chi around Jiu Fei and fiercely collided with the 5 elements stellar chi around him. The powerful impact caused his body to shake as if he had been struck by 1,000 kilograms of heavy hammer. The powerful impact caused his body to shake, as though he had been struck by a heavy hammer. The faint demonic shadow contained powerful demonic energy. Jiu Fei was about to disperse the demonic shadow that had collided with his protective stellar energy. However, when the demonic shadow collided with Jiu Fei's 5 elements Great Dipper energy, it suddenly exploded. The demonic shadow's self-destruction caused the protective stellar energy around Jiu Fei to shake violently. The 5-colored radiance that had seeped out of his body immediately dimmed, and it actually showed signs of dissipating. The violent force caused Jiu Fei to stagger back 3 steps before he could stabilize himself. He had underestimated these fellows. At this point, Jiu Fei already knew that this so-called 10,000 demonic formation was indeed extraordinary. No one would have expected the demonic shadow's self-destruction to be such an extreme attack. The demonic flags fluttered, and ghosts cried. Indistinctly, one could see the demonic shadows colliding within the demonic chi, as though there were countless demonic heads moving within the demonic chi. Then, the demonic shadows pounced towards Jiu Fei one after another. Boom, 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 boom. The demonic shadows that collided with Jiu Fei's protective shield all exploded. Amidst the loud sounds, the terrifying energy that erupted instantly drowned Jiu Fei. Boy, do you know how powerful I am? Ha ha. A complacent laughter came from within the demonic chi. Roar. Ji Fei was infuriated. He let out a furious roar and a dazzling 5-elemental aura emerged from his body. A powerful wave of energy burst out from the surging demonic aura. Then, a 5-colored ball of light appeared in the center of the demonic formation. In the darkness, someone was surprised. I didn't expect his turtle shell to be so hard. Brothers, put in more effort and refine him. Good. Refine him, but this time, the Dao core belongs to me. Those people thought that Ji Fei was an expert who had already condensed a Dao core in the righteous path, but they did not know that Ji Fei did not walk the path of immortal cultivation. His body had not condensed a Dao core at all. Haha, well said. Kill him and the Dao core will belong to you, another person said. These people were casually talking about who would get the Dao core in Ji Fei's body after he was killed. It seemed that in their eyes, Ji Fei was already a dead man. It was not easy to refine the heavenly devil flag. In addition to the soul, the Dao core of a cultivator and the devil core of a devil cultivator were also a great supplement for the heavenly devil flag. After the heavenly devil flag swallowed the Dao core or devil core, its power would greatly increase. As Ji Fei listened to these people's words, his face seemed to be covered with a layer of frost. It was frighteningly cold. You don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Watch how I break your demonic formation. Ji Fei shouted. His voice was like a great bell, and the rolling sound waves shook the demonic qi around his body, covering up the sound of the explosion. He used all his strength to circulate his Xian qi, and the light of the 5 elements came out of his body, forming a huge 5-colored ball of light that enveloped him. No matter how the demonic shadows outside attacked, they could not shake Ji Fei's protective gang qi. However, the demonic shadows that self-destructed did not disappear. After they self-destructed, they quickly condensed again in the demonic qi, and then continued to pounce on Ji Fei. This kind of attack seemed endless. Haha. You can break our myriad demon formation? Unless the sun rises from the west. This is the funniest joke I've ever heard. He's crazy. The 8 young cultivators from the 6 demonic palace who were hidden in the myriad demon formation all mocked Ji Fei. It was no wonder that they were so confident. Even someone with a higher cultivation than them, trapped in the myriad demon formation, would have their magic power and true essence whittled away by the endless attacks. However, they could not do anything to Ji Fei at the moment. The sky demon blade. Just then, a cry of surprise came from afar. Dong Li Potian, you bastard. The next time we meet, I'll make sure you die a horrible death. The voice quickly faded away, and by the time it finished speaking, the last few words were already more than 10 miles away. The speed of that person was evident. Trying to take advantage of senior brother's fire WRM inner core? How reckless. A disdainful voice came from within the demonic qi. Ji Fei sensed a powerful aura rapidly approaching from the front. Although he was busy dealing with the demonic shadows that kept pouncing on him, he kept his eyes and ears open. He knew that Dong Li Potian had used the sky demon blade to chase away the other demonic cultivator who was eyeing the fire WM inner core, and then turned around to deal with him. The sky demon blade. I didn't expect the number 1 demonic blade to be in his hands. This is going to be troublesome. Ji Fei was secretly shocked. He had seen the power of the sky demon blade before. Ji Fei, die. Outside the demonic formation, a figure directly rushed in. Then, a blood-colored blade light tore through the void, sweeping away layers of demonic qi, and directly chopped down on Ji Fei's head. Ji Fei was trapped in the center of the demonic formation, and a powerful force surged from all directions, making it difficult for him to dodge the blade. The blade light shot out hundreds of feet, like a heavenly blade, and actually split open a hundreds of feet long hole in the tumbling demonic qi in the sky. Like a blood-colored rainbow, it emitted an endless demonic aura and fiercely chopped on the 5 elements gang qi around Ji Fei. The moment the unparalleled blade light chopped on Ji Fei's 5 elements gang qi, the demonic shadows that pounced on Ji Fei from the demonic qi suddenly dissipated under the blood-colored blade light. Kai. The 5 elemental stellar energy, which was as hard as godly metal, could not even withstand a single blow from the sky demon saber's saber ray. The saber ray sliced through the 5 elemental stellar energy around Ji Yufei's body like a thin piece of paper. Damn it! Ji Yufei's long hair danced in the wind as he stared at the falling blade light. At this moment, the skin of his whole body suddenly turned purple. His whole body was like an unsheathed peerless divine weapon, revealing its sharpness and emitting a shocking sword chi. Rumble. The entire 10,000 demonic formation began to shake. Retreat. A loud shout came from above, and the 8 demonic cultivators who used the demonic flags to form the 10,000 demonic formation immediately cried out in alarm and quickly retreated. Boom. With a loud bang, the whole world shook violently. The blood-colored blade light and the purple sword chi were like divine lights of destruction, shooting out in all directions. A terrifying destructive force spread out, and the demonic chi that had sealed the heavens and earth dissipated like snow under this force. How could this be? Within the energy storm, a figure shrouded in demonic chi was sent flying. The 300-meter-long blood-colored blade light shattered in the void. The ground cracked and caved in. Dust flew everywhere as a huge pit appeared on the dark brown ground. Amidst the cries of alarm, the 8 demonic flags that had been sent flying by the terrifying force rapidly shrank, turning into a black light that shot into the bodies of the 8 demonic cultivators who had been sent flying. The destruction of the 10,000 demonic formation immediately dealt a huge blow to the 8 cultivators. As they crashed to the ground, they all spat out a mouthful of blood. Everyone from the 6 demonic palace must die. A cold voice rang out from within the pit. Amidst the billowing dust, a terrifying figure walked out of the pit and stared coldly at the people from the 6 demonic palace. Ji Yufei was furious. Just now, he was almost dismembered by the Sky Devil saber. His hair was disheveled, and his body was covered in dust. His shirt was torn into rags that hung on his body, and a trace of blood could be seen at the corner of his mouth. He looked extremely miserable. Chapter 312. Everyone was shocked beyond belief. Someone had actually survived a single strike from the Sky Demon saber. The Sky Demon saber was known as the #1 saber of the demonic Tao. Dongli Potian was the most shocked. He never imagined that someone would be able to resist the edge of the Sky Demon saber with just his body alone. The Sky Demon saber was the defining treasure of the 6-path demonic palace, and it possessed unparalleled might. Dongli Potian couldn't help but feel a little uneasy as he stared at the silhouette shrouded in murderous aura. He could sense that his opponent was very strong, and there was something strange about him. If it weren't for the Sky Demon saber, Dongli Potian would have retreated a long time ago. However, he had the Sky Demon saber in his hand. So even though he could sense the unfathomable power on Ji Yufei's body, he was still confident that he could put up a fight against Ji Yufei. There weren't many people in the 6-path demonic palace who knew about Ji Yufei, but Dongli Potian was Chu Ji's successor, so he knew about Ji Yufei's existence. Even Dongli Potian's 8 junior brothers didn't know who Ji Yufei was or why Dongli Potian wanted Ji Yufei dead. After all, the first son of the 6-path demonic lord had suffered a great loss at the hands of an unknown brat. Chu Ji definitely wouldn't tell anyone about this. He only told his 3rd brother, 7 luminaries, and a few of his confidants. If this matter were to spread, Chu Ji would definitely lose all his face. Therefore, Dongli Potian immediately recognized Ji Yufei as the person his master had mentioned. Hence, he ordered his 8 junior brothers to kill Ji Yufei. If Ji Yufei had infused a mysterious sword soul into his body through the weapon refinement technique, Dongli Skybreaker might have succeeded. The sharpness of the Sky Demon saber wasn't something that Ji Yufei could contend with right now. However, with the help of the sword soul, Ji Yufei's body gained the characteristics of the mysterious sword. Even the Sky Demon saber couldn't break through Ji Yufei's flesh. In the nick of time, Ji Yufei used the power of the divine weapon soul to cover his entire body. It was as if he had transformed into an ancient divine weapon, allowing him to block the Sky Demon saber's light and escape this calamity. Step by step, Ji Yufei approached the devil cultivator who was sent flying. The 5 elements divine light burst out of his body like a 5-colored divine fire burning outside his body. Buzz! A crisp sword chime rang out. Amidst the 5-colored divine radiance, 5 sword shadows appeared. The 5 elements sword chi spread out, and the surrounding temperature plummeted. Why you're a sword cultivator? Dongli Potian couldn't help but be moved at this moment. The sword aura emanating from Ji Yufei was simply too powerful. It was as if his entire being had turned into a heavenly sword. Dongli Potian could feel the sky demon saber vibrating in his hand. It was as if the saber had met its match. Dongli Potian knew that the sky demon saber in Ji Yufei's body was extraordinary. It was able to make the sky demon saber react. The sky demon saber was known as the #1 demonic weapon of the demonic Tao. It had devoured countless blood essences and souls to condense a weak saber spirit within it. The saber spirit was also known as the saber soul. The sky demon saber was a demonic saber with a spirit of evil. Any cultivator struck by the sky demon saber would have their blood essence devoured by the demonic Tao in an instant. Even their soul would be absorbed into the demonic saber, becoming its nourishment. Buzz. The demonic saber in Dongli Potian's hand vibrated gently. The blood-colored saber light flickered erratically, as if it could fly out of his hand at any time and slash at Ji Yufei. At the same time, the remnant soul of the divine weapon in Ji Yufei's body sensed the sky demon saber's presence. It rapidly traversed through Ji Yufei's blood energy, showing signs of breaking out of his body. Ji Yufei was a little surprised. One had to know that only the Azure Dragon Saber could trigger a reaction from the sword soul back in the stone forest formation. Senior brother, kill him. Senior brother, let him know the power of the Sky Demon Saber. At this time, the 8 young cultivators who were sent flying stood up from the ground. Their faces were pale with blood dripping from the corners of their mouths, and their expressions were weary. It was obvious that the destruction of the myriad demon formation had heavily injured them. When they saw Ji Yufei walk out of the pit, they immediately retreated far away. The demonic cultivators immediately thought of themselves. Although the 8 young cultivators were from the same sect as Dongli Potian, the competition between them was also very cruel. They couldn't wait for Dongli Potian to be defeated by Ji Yufei. Moreover, Dongli Potian hadn't warned Ji Yufei when he'd used the Sky Demon Saber just now. Instead, he charged straight into the formation and swung his saber. Dongli Potian didn't care about their lives at all. This made the 8 disciples very angry, but they didn't dare show any dissatisfaction because Dongli Potian's cultivation was higher than theirs. In the extreme northern demon region, whoever's fist was harder was the boss. If the 8 demonic cultivators were stronger than Dongli Potian, they'd just as mercilessly trample him under their feet. Ji Yufei's eyes were as cold as the edge of a blade. His long hair fluttered despite the lack of wind, and an invisible aura as heavy as a mountain formed around him. An earth-shattering killing intent locked onto the young man wielding the Sky Demon Saber. He was the one who'd made Ji Yufei feel the aura of death just now. Bam! Ji Yufei covered 10 meters with each step. His footsteps were as heavy as a mountain, causing the ground to tremble as he stepped on the dark brown ground. Bam! Taking another step forward, the earth trembled slightly. Ji Yufei was like a huge ancient mountain slowly moving over, his heavy aura pressuring everyone to the point of suffocation. Moreover, the instant he took his second step, Ji Yufei's aura suddenly rose by a large margin, pressing towards Dongli Potian like a demonic god. Dongli Potian's expression changed abruptly. To his surprise, he realized that there was an indescribable rhythm to Ji Yufei's footsteps, as if they were one with the pulse of heaven and earth. Ji Yufei's footsteps drew upon the energy of heaven and earth, and the spiritual energy of heaven and earth gathered towards him. The 8 retreating disciples also noticed this phenomenon, and they were all incomparably shocked. Could it be that this youth's cultivation had already reached the realm of being one with the world? Bam! With another step, Ji Yufei appeared in front of Dongli Potian as if he'd teleported. Dongli Potian felt his heart thump violently along with the sound of his opponent's footsteps. Dongli Potian felt a boundless, mountain-like energy ripple radiating from Ji Yufei's body. It was as if the entire world was trembling with Ji Yufei's footsteps. At this moment, Ji Yufei seemed to have truly merged with heaven and earth, and the frequency of his footsteps perfectly harmonized with the pulse of heaven and earth. This was a terrifying rhythm, and he was controlling the initiative of the battle. With his third step, Ji Fei's aura and strength rose to an unimaginable level. The 5 elemental swords around him were no longer faint and illusory. Instead, they glowed with resplendent sword light, as if they were 5 divine swords of different colors. They revolved around him, emitting a towering sword chi. Ji Fei's strength was condensed with every step he took. It was like the waves of a great river, layer after layer, stacking on top of each other. With just 3 steps, Ji Fei's strength had already risen to a horrifying level. The vast energy fluctuations that emanated from his body caused ripples that could be seen with the naked eye to appear in the surrounding space. However, Ji Fei didn't seem to have any intention of stopping. He wanted to take a 4th step. With Ji Fei's current cultivation base, he could only take the 4th step of the 8 steps 8 kills. However, Dongli Potian wasn't going to let him take the 4th step, because he could already sense the danger. Roar! Dongli Potian bellowed. His long hair danced wildly in the wind as rays of black light shot out from his body. He gripped his saber with both hands and raised it up high, channeling all the energy in his body towards the Sky Demon saber. The Sky Demon saber emitted a dazzling crimson radiance. A terrifying saber chi surged from the saber and dyed the surrounding space the color of blood. Sky Demon slaughtering gods, saber dominating the world. Dongli Potian's expression was extremely ferocious as he shouted and slashed down with the Sky Demon saber in his hand. A crimson saber light soared out from Dongli Potian's hand, shooting for hundreds of meters and heavily slashing down on Ji Fei's head. This saber strike was so domineering that it seemed as if it would even split the heavens and earth in half. The crimson saber light had the power to split the heavens and earth, causing the earth to tremble. His 8 junior brothers saw that the situation wasn't right and dodged even further away. Ji Fei sneered. At this moment, his 4th step was already unstoppable. Rumble. It was as if thunder was rumbling. The power of the 4 steps was extremely violent. The earth cracked, the void seemed to collapse, and the heavens and earth trembled as if doomsday had arrived. The unparalleled saber light slashed through the torrent of energy formed by Ji Fei's 4th step like a hot knife through butter, slashing towards Ji Fei. The power of the 4th step seemed to be unable to withstand the ferocious might of the Sky Demon saber. But was that really the case? The 8 desolation steps was an ancient battle technique. Of course, it wouldn't be so weak. When the crimson saber light slashed in front of Ji Fei, the power of the 4th step suddenly erupted. Rumble. The terrifying power resisted the slash of the saber light. The blood-colored saber light quickly slowed down until it was only a meter away from Ji Fei's head. Catcher, catcher. Cracks appeared on the seemingly solid blood-colored saber light, as if something had split open. Then, with a bing sound, the blood-colored saber light collapsed and turned into specks of blood-colored light that shot out. Boom. With an earth-shattering sound, the earth violently undulated like waves. Hideous fissures appeared on the ground. The Sky Demon saber chi and the power of Ji Fei's 4th step completely exploded. 2 terrifying forces spread out in all directions. The dark brown earth beneath Ji Fei's feet turned into a layer of dust that swept out in all directions. Ji Fei flew back like a phantom, using the 5 elemental sword chi to protect himself as he rushed out of the erupting energy storm. Dongli Potian, on the other hand, was sent flying hundreds of meters away. His face turned red as he spat out a mouthful of blood. Even with the Sky Demon saber in hand, he was still injured. Chapter 313. This was a direct collision of strength. There were no tricks involved. The stronger one would win. However, it seemed that the 2 were evenly matched. After Ji Fei stabilized himself, his face flushed red as if he was drunk. A mouthful of blood rushed up his throat, but he forcefully swallowed it back down. 5 faint and illusory sword shadows were still revolving around him, emitting waves of cold sword chi that blocked the energy storm that was about to erupt. The profound art circulated rapidly within his body. As his flesh and blood surged, streams of pure 5 elemental yuan chi were released, causing Ji Fei's entire body to seem like a piece of 5-colored godly metal, giving off a feeling of being filled with power. The physical body of a cultivator was incomparably tough because it was the source of their power. A body that had been tempered hundreds and thousands of times was something that other cultivators couldn't compare to. A tough body not only had a strong recovery ability, but also the longest endurance. This kind of physical strength undoubtedly gave him a lot of advantages in battle. Again, Jiyu Fei shouted and took a step forward, displaying his extreme speed of 8 steps. It was as if he was teleporting. With each step, he could travel 100 meters. In just a few steps, he had arrived in front of Dongli Potian. He didn't even need to take a breath. Good. Dongli Potian's fighting spirit was like a rainbow. He didn't believe that he couldn't kill Jiyu Fei with the demonic saber in hand. Dongli Potian gripped the demonic saber with both hands and slashed at Jiyu Fei again. A blood-red light illuminated the world. The surrounding spiritual energy quickly gathered towards the demonic saber. The saber light turned into a blood dragon that was hundreds of meters long, pouncing towards Jiyu Fei with its claws and fangs bared. Jiyu Fei's face was as calm as still water. He extended his right hand and took in a golden sword shadow beside him. He then slashed out with his sword. With a whistling sound, a golden sword chi rushed out of Jiyu Fei's hand. It was like an incomparably huge heavenly sword, strangling the blood dragon that was pouncing towards him. The saber chi turned into a dragon, and the power of heaven and earth was also drawn. Endless spiritual energy gathered towards the blood dragon, raising its power to the limit. The Sky Demon Saber was a spiritual demonic weapon. Not only could it devour a cultivator's blood and soul, it could also devour the spiritual chi between heaven and earth. Wherever the saber light went, it would cut off all life. On the other hand, Jiyu Fei's metal element sword chi was extremely firm and yang, which was the nemesis of the Sky Demon Blade. Boom! With a loud bang, the Sky Demon Blade's Dragon Blade Chi and Jiyu Fei's Metal Sword Chi collided in an instant. The terrifying Blade Chi and Sword Chi clashed violently, then shot out in all directions. In this second confrontation, the two top young experts still didn't use any techniques. It was a battle of pure strength. They wanted to completely overwhelm each other in terms of strength. Catcher. The golden sword light that resembled a heavenly sword shattered and turned into specks of golden light that scattered in all directions. At the same time, boom! A loud explosion rang out, and the crimson dragon formed by the blood-red Dao light also exploded, sending blood-red light shooting in all directions. Golden and blood-red, the two-colored light exploded into a vast energy storm, sweeping outwards. Rumble! The void trembled, and the earth trembled. The two energy storms wreaked havoc, distorting space and shaking the earth as if this part of the world was about to collapse. Jiyu Fei and Dongli Potian, who were at the center of the energy storm, fell from the sky along with the shattered ground. Everything in a radius of several dozen meters around them had collapsed. The dark brown earth was incomparably hard, but it was as brittle as tofu under the two's feet. Dust and dirt rose several dozen meters into the air. Rumble! Underground, the two were still locked in battle. The energy fluctuations that erupted from them caused the ground to undulate like waves. Boulders tumbled, and countless pieces of shattered earth shot into the sky. Gravel pierced through the air, as if doomsday had arrived. The blood-red blade chi and golden sword chi that were shooting out in all directions seemed invincible. The dark brown earth was instantly covered in sword and saber marks. The 8 Dongli Potian juniors watching from afar were all incomparably shocked. They were well aware of Dongli Potian's strength, not to mention that he had the Sky Demon Blade in hand. Even if they combined their strength in the myriad demon formation, they still wouldn't be Dongli Potian's match. However, they discovered that their senior brother had encountered an unimaginably powerful opponent who could fight endlessly against Dongli Potian with the Sky Demon Blade. After exchanging a blow, Jiyu Fei and Dongli Potian charged at each other. 5 swords spun in Jiyu Fei's hand, and Jiyu Fei only needed to stretch out his hand to draw the swords into his hand and unleash a barrage of unparalleled sword light at Dongli Potian. Jiyu Fei discovered that Dongli Potian's cultivation had already reached the 4th stage of the Ascended Realm. If Dongli Potian didn't have the Sky Demon Blade in hand, he would have long since died under Jiyu Fei's sword light. The Sky Demon Blade blocked all of Jiyu Fei's attacks. Each time Dongli Potian slashed out, There seemed to be countless demons roaring within the blood-red light. The ear-piercing sound was like a soul-stealing demonic sound that could affect the opponent's mind. Although Ji Yufei had seen Demon Monarch of Six Paths' doppelganger fight against Chaoyang Hermit, the first seat of Shaoyang Peak with the Sky Demon Blade in the mountains outside Dragon Emperor City, Ji Yufei had never seen it. At that time, Ji Yufei felt that the Sky Demon Blade was extremely terrifying. But now, Dongli Potian couldn't fully exert the power of the Sky Demon Blade. Ji Yufei's 5-element sword Qi was enough to resist the Sky Demon Blade. If Dongli Potian could fully exert the power of the Sky Demon Blade, Ji Yufei would have long retreated decisively. Bang! Dust flew everywhere as two silhouettes rushed out of the pit. Die! With a roar, Ji Yufei took out a brilliant immortal sword in each of his hands. They were metal sword shadows and fire sword shadows. Using 8 desolation steps, Ji Yufei soared into the sky. Golden sword Qi and flames filled every inch of the space and shrouded towards Dongli Potian. Dongli Potian's long hair fluttered in the wind as he brandished his Sky Demon Blade in all directions. Each slash seemed to be able to break the void and split the world, blocking the brilliant sword lights. The fire sword Qi and metal sword Qi collided with the evil blood-red saber light. The two people constantly clashed with each other from the ground to the ground before soaring into the sky. Ji Yufei pushed 8 desolation steps to the extreme, while Dongli Potian seemed to be standing on a demonic cloud, allowing the two to soar into the sky. Extremely powerful Qi waves surged in all directions like monstrous billows. The dark brown ground shook violently as the dark brown soil spread outwards like waves. The boulders on the ground were sent flying, and the 8 demonic cultivators were the first to be hit. They cried out in alarm as they dodged far away. The strength of these two young experts was simply too shocking. They seemed to be able to compete with the experts of the older generation. Looking from afar, one could see a sky full of golden light and a blood-red evil light clashing and cancelling each other out. The two experts seemed to be flying in the sky as they fought fiercely in the air for a short period of time. After using 8 desolation steps to the extreme, Ji Yufei could move in the air for a short period of time. Dongli Potian could also stay in the air for a short period of time with his demonic cloud. The same cold eyes and the same messy long hair. One righteous and one evil, the two pinnacle young experts battled in the air like gods and demons. Boom! The two clashed again before falling to the ground. Transcending mortality cultivators, be it martial cultivators or demonic cultivators, could not truly fly in the air. Transcending mortality cultivators could soar in the air, but they had to rely on magic treasures. Although Ji Yufei and Dongli Potian could stay in the air for a short period of time, they could not stay in the air for long. I have the demonic saber in my hand. How can you fight against me? Dongli Potian's hair was flying in the air as blood seeped out from the corner of his mouth. He pointed the invincible demonic saber at Ji Yufei. 5 sword shadows rotated around Ji Yufei's body, protecting him. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and sneered, "So what if you have the demonic saber? If you could defeat me, you wouldn't have said so much nonsense." Ha! Dongli Potian couldn't help but become furious. He could only contend against Ji Yufei by relying on the demonic saber in his hand. This was enough to prove that he was inferior to Ji Yufei. Kill! Dongli Potian roared and swung his demonic saber, unleashing layers of crimson saber light that enveloped the sky and swept towards Ji Yufei. The peerless saber Qi spread out, stirring up the dark brown dust on the ground, causing it to spread in all directions. Great 5 elemental annihilation palm. Ji Yufei roared as endless 5-colored rays converged towards his right palm. This terrifying martial technique drew upon the power of the 5 elements of heaven and earth. Ji Yufei pushed his right hand forward as the boundless power of the 5 elements condensed in front of Ji Yufei's palm into a palm of light that emitted a terrifying fluctuation. It rushed forward like a mountain. Rumble. The heaven and earth trembled as the huge palm of light emitted a majestic energy fluctuation. The crimson saber light that was sweeping towards them all shattered under the palm of light. Roar. Dongli Potian seemed to have turned into a war demon as he slashed out 3 times in a row. The 100-meter saber light tore through the void and slashed at the palm of light. Boom! Crimson light burst out as the saber light shattered, causing the heaven and earth to tremble. The first slash couldn't stop the palm of light, but it had already dimmed. Boom! Another slash, accompanied by unparalleled saber aura, caused the palm of light to tremble again and again. It was as if it could shatter at any moment in the void. Boom! Another loud explosion rang out as the great five elemental annihilation palm condensed from the power of the five elements crumbled under the third slash. The crimson saber light had already dimmed after splitting the palm of light, but it didn't stop there as it continued to slash towards Jiu Fei, who was behind the palm of light. Jiu Fei sneered. He took a step forward and reached out his hand to grab the saber radiance. The saber radiance, which seemed to have materialized, was caught in his hand. Bing! The saber radiance instantly shattered, turning into specks of bloodlight that scattered in all directions. How awe-inspiring! Let's see where you can run this time, Jiu Fei. A loud roar came from the distance just as Jiu Fei shattered Dongli Potion's saber light. The voice rumbled like thunder, reverberating in the air for a long time. At the same time, Dongli Potion felt his hand shake as the sky demon saber turned into a crimson light and soared into the sky. Chapter 314. While Jiu Fei and Dongli Potion were fighting, a long roar suddenly came from the distant sky. The sound was like rumbling thunder, and it reverberated in the sky. A terrifying energy wave surged over from afar. When the voice entered Jiu Fei's ears, he was immediately alarmed. He quickly looked in the direction of the voice and saw a demonic cloud enveloping a hazy demonic figure rapidly approaching. Without any hesitation, Jiu Fei immediately turned around and fled. He pushed his extreme 8-step speed to the limit and dashed dozens of meters away like the wind and lightning. The incoming person was riding on a demonic cloud. It was a peerless expert of the Imperial Void Realm. Jiu Fei had no choice but to flee. A peerless expert of the Imperial Void Realm wasn't someone he could contend against. Ha ha! Flee! Do you think you can still escape? A loud voice came from behind Jiu Fei, reverberating between heaven and earth. The expressions of Dongli Potion and his junior brothers changed greatly. The rolling sound waves caused their blood and qi to churn. The 8 young cultivators turned pale and were on the verge of collapsing. The blood-red light from the sky demon saber rushed into the sky and shot towards that person. The blood-red demonic saber appeared in that person's hand and gave off a clear dragon's roar. The blood-red light shot out and gave off a demonic ripple that could cause anyone's heart to palpitate. How could it be him? This is troublesome. At this moment, Jiu Fei felt that his life was in danger. He had already recognized the voice of the peerless expert that came from the void. Swish! As if he was teleporting, Jiu Fei sprinted across the barren land without looking back. With every step he took, he would appear 30 to 40 meters away. It could be said that he was extremely fast. As the pursuit continued, Jiu Fei and the peerless expert disappeared into the distance in the blink of an eye. The peerless expert who put away the sky demon saber didn't pay any attention to Dongli Potion and the 8 young cultivators who were standing on the ground in a daze. He chased after Jiu Fei. It's master. Dongli Potion murmured to himself in disbelief. The sky demon saber wasn't something that just anyone could take away, unless it was the demonic monarch of 6 paths and a few others. Master. He has come out of seclusion. The 8 devil Dao cultivators looked at the devil cloud disappearing into the distance, their faces filled with fear. The 8 steps extreme speed could be said to be the fastest in the world. When cultivated to the extreme, one could travel through the world with 8 steps. However, with Jiu Fei's cultivation level, even if he used all of his strength, it would be difficult for him to perform the 8 steps extreme speed. Very soon, Jiu Fei had run over 10 miles, but the person chasing him on the demonic cloud was not slow either. In fact, he was even a little faster than Jiu Fei's extreme 8 steps. The distance between the two of them was gradually shrinking. Soon, the demonic cloud was already closing in on Jiu Fei. Eat my blade! A cold voice rang out from within the demonic cloud. Then, a blood-colored blade light slashed out from the cloud. It soared thousands of meters into the sky and chopped down on the fleeing Jiu Fei. It was the same sky demon saber, but in the hands of this person, it displayed a terrifying might that made even the heavens and earth pale. The difference was like the difference between clouds and mud when it was in Dongli Potion's hands. The 1,000-meter-long blade light enveloped the sky and earth. Ji Yufei felt his body sink. Before the blood-colored blade light even reached him, it felt like a mountain was pressing down on his body, causing Ji Yufei's speed to immediately slow down. Damn it! Ji Yufei felt a great danger enveloping him. The cold saber qi seemed to be all-pervasive, causing the rapidly circulating yuan qi in his body to boil. There was a strange, evil energy that wanted to vaporize his body's qi and blood. Ji Yufei felt as if his insides were being scorched by fire, as if his entire body was on fire. Furthermore, the fire was burning inside his body. However, even though he felt like he had fallen into a sea of fire, all the pores on Ji Yufei's body exploded the moment the blade light landed. Roar! Ji Yufei let out a mad roar as he desperately circulated the 5 elemental yuan qi in his body. The 5 sword shadows around him erupted with a blinding light, forming a terrifying barrier of light around him. The 5 elemental sword qi rushed forward. Ji Yufei desperately dodged to the side when the 1,000-meter-long saber radiance slashed down. The terrifying saber radiance brushed past him and the 5 elemental sword aura around Ji Yufei's body instantly shattered. The clothes on his upper body turned into rags in an instant. Boom! With a loud noise, the blade light slashed on the dark brown ground, causing the area to shake violently as if there was an earthquake. The Sky Devil saber slashed out a 1,000-meter-long saber mark on the ground. The terrifying saber qi swept out and Ji Yufei was sent flying by the terrifying saber radiance. As the world shook violently, Ji Yufei was directly swept away by the destructive storm. He spat out a mouthful of blood in the air. The Sky Demon saber, in the hands of a peerless expert of the Void Controlling Realm, displayed a terrifying power that caused even the heavens and earth to pale in comparison. With just a single slash, it was as if the earth had been split into 2 halves. On the dark brown earth, the soil cracked and caved in, forming a 1,000-foot-long slash mark that was dozens of feet wide and hundreds of feet deep. If Ji Yufei were to be struck by this slash, he would die on the spot even with the protection of the nameless sword spirit. This was strength. If one's cultivation was not high enough, even if one had a peerless magic weapon, it would be difficult to exert its true strength. Like a kite with its string cut, Ji Yufei was sent flying 100 zhong away. Bang! He fell to the ground with a thud. Although he wasn't really struck by that earth-shattering blade, he still suffered a great impact. Ji Yufei felt as if his body was falling apart. His body was covered in bloody scars, which were left behind by the saber qi that had burst out. The destruction of the 5 elemental astral sword had severely injured him. If he hadn't spread the essence of the magic weapon throughout his body, he wouldn't have been able to withstand such an attack. Lying in the cold soil, Ji Yufei's heart was filled with despair. His opponent was too powerful, and he didn't even have the strength to fight back. At this time, Dongli Potian and his 8 junior brothers also arrived nearby. They couldn't help but be shocked by the scene before them. Has Master recovered his cultivation? Dongli Potian thought. They didn't dare to move forward because the lofty figure standing on the demonic clouds in the sky emitted a great pressure, making them feel as if a boulder was pressing down on their hearts. Ha ha! Ji Yufei, accept your fate. That person looked down at Ji Yufei, who was on the ground, and laughed heartily. He seemed to be very happy. Ji Yufei coughed out a mouthful of blood and staggered up from the ground. He smiled bitterly. I didn't expect your cultivation to have risen to this level. If I hadn't been heavily injured by that dead ghost on the demonic god island, you would have already died by my hands. The figure shrouded in demonic energy gave off an incomparably evil aura. He paused for a moment before continuing, speaking of which, I have to thank you. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to fuse with the demonic god's blood so easily. You're an expert of the older generation, yet you want to deal with a nameless junior? Aren't you afraid of being laughed at by the world? Ji Yufei coldly asked. As matters stood, he wasn't afraid of the other party's ferocious might. Ha ha! How childish. I'm a demon, and I'm afraid of being laughed at. I, Chu Ji, am a demon. Whatever I want to do, I do. I don't care what others think. Ji Yufei knew that there was no hope of escaping, so he didn't say anything else. At this moment of life and death, his heart was calm as he stared straight at Chu Ji in the sky. Chu Ji, who was standing on the demonic clouds, couldn't help but admire Ji Yufei's courage when he saw how calm he was. It would be a pity to kill such a person. Good. If you can pledge allegiance to me and work for me, I can spare your life, Chu Ji said. He had a heart of love for talent. For a person like Ji Yufei, if he turned to the demonic path, he would also be able to achieve something. If you want to kill me, do as you please. I will definitely not join the demonic path. Ji Yufei knew that if he agreed to Chu Ji, he would become a traitor of the Supreme Mystery Sect and be shamed by the world. Ha ha. Ji Yufei, you've done well. At this moment, a loud laugh suddenly came from the sky. A golden light flashed in the sky, and in an instant, a middle-aged man wearing a blue robe appeared in front of him. The Dao sect's golden light escape technique? Chu Ji couldn't help but be surprised. The person who had come was definitely a master. There was a golden light in the sky, and the person seemed to have teleported, arriving in front of him. His speed was shocking. Chu Ji knew that the person who had come was powerful, so he no longer hesitated. He directly slashed down at Ji Yufei. His chi had already firmly locked onto Ji Yufei. This slash was a fatal one. Along with the mournful cries of ghosts, the crimson saber light swept across the sky. Under the envelopment of the saber light, heaven and earth trembled. The terrifying edge of the saber seemed to be able to tear the sky apart. It was as if it was going to kill Ji Yufei with a thunderous momentum. Since he could not be used by him, he would immediately kill him. Chu Ji was a decisive person. He would not hesitate at all. As soon as he had the intention to kill, he immediately acted without the slightest bit of hesitation. Chu Ji, you're courting death. The person seemed to recognize Chu Ji. When he saw that Chu Ji wanted to kill Ji Yufei, he could not help but be furious. He then waved his sleeve, and a golden light shot out towards Chu Ji. Within the golden light, countless thin golden threads could be seen. They pierced through the void, piercing towards Chu Ji at an extremely fast speed. At this time, Ji Yufei knew that his chance had come. However, he found that under Chu Ji's heavenly devil blade, he could not move at all. The blade chi enveloped the world, binding him, and the void around him seemed to be frozen. Ji Yufei couldn't help but be shocked. At this time, he realized that the gap between him and a peerless void-controlling expert was huge. How did Chu Ji's cultivation increase so quickly? Ji Yufei struggled with all his might. The five-colored light was like a five-colored flame that emitted from his body. He wanted to rush out from under Chu Ji's blade. He knew that if he was hit by Chu Ji's blade, even with the protection of the sword soul, he would still die. Chapter 315. Minister Dan. In the face of that person's attack, even Chu Ji's expression changed. If it was under normal circumstances, he would definitely not put his opponent in his eyes. But now, his cultivation had just recovered to the void-controlling realm, and the opponent's strength was on par with his. Left with no choice, Chu Ji's slash towards Ji Yufei paused for a moment. A glaring blood-red light spread out and actually engulfed the tens of thousands of golden threads that were shooting towards Chu Ji. With this pause, Ji Yufei, who was enveloped by the 1,000-foot-long saber light, immediately felt his body relax, as if a huge mountain that was pressing down on him had suddenly been moved away. Roar. At the juncture of life and death, Ji Yufei let out an angry roar, his face contorted, and he looked extremely ferocious. He used all his strength to activate the Yuan Qi in his body, and every inch of his flesh, every piece of his tendons and bones emitted a dazzling light. At this moment, all his flesh, blood, tendons, and bones seemed to have been deified, emitting a dazzling light. A five-colored light penetrated his body, and an unprecedentedly powerful energy fluctuation erupted. When the saber light fell again, Ji Yufei resisted the endless pressure coming down from the sky and rushed out, narrowly avoiding the 1,000-foot saber light that was coming down from the sky. Pang! The earth shook violently, and the dark brown hard ground undulated like waves, spreading to both sides, and black dust rose high into the sky. Ji Fei was swept away by the terrifying saber light like a withered leaf, and he spat out a mouthful of blood in the air. Damn it! An angry roar came from the sky, and golden light illuminated the world. At the same time, a figure surrounded by golden light rushed down from the sky, grabbed Ji Fei, and rushed into the sky. With a sneer, Chu Ji waved the Sky Devil saber, mincing all the golden threads that were shooting at him from all directions, and then slashed at the figure wrapped in golden light. The saber light cut through the void, and instantly struck the back of the golden figure, but at this moment, there was a flash of golden light, and the golden figure grabbed Ji Fei and disappeared into thin air the moment the saber light struck. When the golden light reappeared, it was already more than 10 miles away. What a fast escape technique! Chu Ji couldn't help but be shocked at this scene. The Dao sect's escape technique was not inferior to the demonic path's heavenly demon blood transformation escape technique. Where do you think you're going? Chu Ji shouted, and immediately chased after the figure on the demonic cloud. The golden light in front of him flashed a few times before disappearing into the horizon. Chu Ji's speed was clearly inferior to his opponent's, but he could still follow the energy fluctuations in the void that had yet to subside and chase after it. The two's speed was extremely fast, and in the blink of an eye, and they had already disappeared into the horizon. Dongli Potian and his fellow disciples had never imagined that things would turn out like this. The appearance of Chu Ji and that expert called Minister Dan had shocked them to the extreme. After a long time, Potian, and the Dao sect, of the sect of the demonic abyss. This place was not far from the abyss of immortals and demons. It was not strange for a peerless expert of the Dao sect to appear here. After all, the opposite side of the abyss of immortals and demons was the territory of Northern Wei. Dongli Potian was the first to chase after Chu Ji. The 8 demonic path experts were a little hesitant, but they still chased after him in the end. Swish! Potian took the lead and chased after Chu Ji. The 8 demonic path cultivators were a little hesitant, but they still chased after him in the end. Swish! The golden rainbow streaked across the sky and went far away in an instant. Ji Fei seemed to be riding on the clouds as he was held under the ribs of the Daoist sect's expert as they flew in the air. Ji Fei could only feel the astral winds blowing against his face, and he could barely open his eyes. The dark brown ground below him was moving rapidly, and soon, Ji Fei could feel the surrounding temperature rising. He noticed that the ground below him was gradually becoming sparse with plants. The atmosphere was no longer lifeless, and there was a hint of life between the heavens and earth. The Dao sect's golden light escape technique was incomparably fast. In a short while, the expert had already carried Ji Fei 700 to 800 miles away, and the mountains and forests began to appear below. Whoosh! The golden rainbow streaked across the sky like a meteor falling from the sky and landed on the ground. Thank you, Martial Uncle, for saving my life. After landing, Ji Fei immediately bowed to the middle-aged Daoist. He already knew who had saved him from Chu Ji. Minister Dan smiled. No need to be so polite. Then, Minister Dan looked at Ji Fei from head to toe, and his face gradually revealed a look of disbelief. I can't believe it. Your cultivation has actually broken through to the transcending mortality realm. Heaven's will, oh heaven's will, it seems that even the heavens do not want the lineage of Green Spirit Peak to end. Minister Dan sighed. At this time, he could already see that Ji Fei's cultivation had broken through to an unimaginable level. At such a young age, he already had a powerful cultivation that allowed him to look down on his peers. This child's potential was limitless. If he could grow up, perhaps Taishien's sect would have a great character. How did you come out of the virtual sky world? And why didn't you return to Taishien's sect? Why did you appear in the Northern Devil's territory? Minister Dan asked. His mind was full of questions. Ever since the discovery of the virtual sky world, there were no records in the ancient books of the 3 great Daoist schools of anyone who was trapped in the virtual sky world and was able to come out. Since the beginning of records, there was only one ending for disciples of Daoist schools who were trapped in the virtual sky world: death. However, not only did Ji Fei not die, but he also came out of the virtual sky world and appeared in the Northern Devil's territory, the birthplace of the demonic path in the world. This was something that Minister Dan could never have imagined, but it actually happened. Could it be that there was a spatial passage in the Northern Devil's territory that connected to the virtual sky world? This was absolutely impossible. If there was a spatial passage in the Northern Devil's territory that connected to the virtual sky world, it meant that people of the demonic path could also enter the virtual sky world. However, after entering the virtual sky world, the disciples of Daoist schools who entered the virtual sky world didn't find any traces of demonic path cultivators. There was no doubt that there was a big secret on Ji Yufei's body, and this was also a secret that Minister Dan desperately wanted to know. It's hard to explain in a few words. Marshal uncle, should we leave this place first? Ji Yufei looked around and was surprised to find that there was an abyss in front of them. It was an abyss filled with devil aura. There was a stone bridge above the abyss. At a glance, it was obvious that this stone bridge had existed for countless years. It made Ji Yufei feel an ancient aura. They were standing on a stone path leading to the stone bridge. Okay. Minister Dan also knew that the things that Ji Yufei experienced couldn't be explained in just a few words. After we pass the abyss of immortals and demons, we will reach the Northern Wei country's Beeling Pass. We will be safe there. As he spoke, Minister Dan took the lead and walked towards the stone bridge. The stone bridge was very wide, allowing 7 to 8 tall horses to cross side by side. The stone bridge was built with green boulders, and it looked simple and unadorned. The railings on both sides were engraved with ancient patterns. Just as Minister Dan and Ji Yufei stepped onto the stone bridge, a terrifying and evil aura surged from the north, and a devil cloud appeared in the sky. Minister Dan, where do you think you are going? A loud shout suddenly came from afar, shaking the heavens and earth. The first son of the demon lord, Chu Ji, had finally arrived. Minister Dan turned to look at the sky, and frowned. He then said to Ji Yufei, "You cross the bridge first, I will go and meet the first son of the demon lord." Without waiting for Ji Yufei to speak, Minister Dan's body emitted an incomparably strong wave of spiritual energy. His body was faintly glowing with a golden light. In the next moment, he shot up into the sky, rushing towards Chu Ji. He still wants to fight at this time? Ji Yufei didn't understand Minister Dan's actions. In fact, he didn't know that Minister Dan had only recently broken through to the Void Controlling Realm. After breaking through to the Void Controlling Realm, Minister Dan was very eager to fight with experts of the same level. He wanted to test how strong he was after breaking through to the Void Controlling Realm. Chu Ji would be a good opponent. As the two of them approached each other in the sky, Minister Dan waved his hand, and thousands of golden threads of light shot out, piercing towards Chu Ji, who was shrouded in devil chi. The golden light illuminated the heavens and the earth. The tens of thousands of golden threads of light were formed from countless golden needles that were as thin as a cow's hair. This was Minister Dan's personal magic treasure, and its power was astonishing. Chu Ji waved the sky devil blade, and instantly, a blood-colored blade light surged out from his hand, forming layers of blood waves. It was like a raging sea surging, blocking the golden threads of light. Kill. Minister Dan's voice was extremely cold. As he shouted, his body emitted a dazzling golden light. The golden threads suddenly covered the heavens and the earth, forming a golden net that sealed off the heaven and earth. It dispersed the blood waves and shrouded Chu Ji, who was shrouded in the devil chi. Roar. A roar came from the devil chi cloud, and then an evil blood-colored blade light rushed out. Suddenly, the blade chi soared into the sky, and blood light shot out in all directions. The blood-colored blade light directly slashed upwards. Peng. With a loud sound, the golden net that was shrouding was torn apart. The golden threads all collapsed under the blade light, turning into dazzling golden light that filled the sky. After the blade light broke through the golden net formed by countless golden needles, it did not lose its momentum and directly slashed towards Minister Dan. Wherever the blade light went, nothing could stop it. The Sky Devil blade is indeed powerful. Minister Dan's body turned into a golden ray of light, and he quickly retreated, dodging the blood-colored blade light. He was secretly shocked. Chu Ji wasn't going to let him off easily. He took a step forward and swung his demon saber, slashing it towards Minister Dan. He wanted to use the power of the Sky Demon Saber to completely suppress Minister Dan. However, Minister Dan did not want to fight Chu-Ji head-on. He quickly moved in the sky, dodging the blade light of the Sky Devil Blade. At the same time, he used the golden needles to split into thousands of golden threads that shot towards Chu-Ji from all directions. At this time, Ji Fei had already walked on the ancient stone bridge. He looked at the fierce battle in the sky, but he did not leave. Instead, he sat cross-legged on the ancient stone bridge, took a spiritual medicine, and used its power to heal his injuries. Chapter 316. On the ancient stone bridge, Ji Fei operated his mysterious technique to refine the medicinal efficacy of the spirit extract. He only felt as if there was a raging flame burning in his abdomen. What he swallowed was a fire-attributed spirit extract, which contained a huge amount of fire-attributed spiritual qi. Traces of fire-attributed qi radiated out from his dantian, and then rushed into his meridians, flowing throughout his body. Then, from his meridians, the spiritual qi penetrated into his flesh and bones, and was absorbed by them. The huge amount of spiritual qi quickly healed Ji Fei's injured body. His body, which had been tempered hundreds and thousands of times, could now easily refine and absorb the spiritual qi of the spirit extract. Of the spiritual qi contained in a heavenly treasure, Ji Fei could refine and absorb more than 60% of it, and only waste less than 40%. If it was any other cultivator who swallowed the fire-attributed spirit extract, they could at most refine 30% to 40% of its medicinal efficacy, which was already their limit. Their physiques were far inferior to Ji Fei's. A martial artist's strength came from their body, and Ji Fei's physique was much stronger than cultivators of the same level. The strength of his body was enough to withstand the magical weapons of cultivators of the same level. The fire-attributed spiritual qi was vast and mighty in Ji Fei's body, washing through his flesh and bones again and again. The huge amount of spiritual qi was constantly absorbed by his body, and his injured body quickly healed. A red aura emitted from the surface of his body, and in just a moment, a dark liquid seeped out from Ji Fei's pores, which was the blood clots in his body being forced out. Ji Fei was slashed twice by Chu-Ji's heavenly devil blade. Although these two slashes did not really hit him, the terrible power that erupted from the heavenly devil blade was not a small matter, causing him to suffer a great impact. Not only did his internal organs suffer a severe shock, causing internal injuries, but cracks also appeared in many parts of his bones. Ji Fei's injuries were not light. However, under the nourishment of the huge amount of spiritual qi from the spirit extract, Ji Fei's injured body was healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. The internal injuries of his internal organs were quickly improving, and the cracks on his bones were quickly disappearing, once again becoming as sparkling as jade. Ji Fei's bone body was transforming into the immortal god Jade Bone. At this time, in the sky above the abyss of immortals and demons, muffled thunderous noises resounded unceasingly. Two terrifying energy fluctuations spread out in all directions. The energy of heaven and earth was chaotic to the extreme, and this side of heaven and earth trembled. The two peerless experts seemed to have turned into two bolts of lightning, violently colliding in the sky, striking out layers upon layers of energy waves, attacking each other to kill. The blood-colored saber light soared for thousands of feet, slashing out in all directions. The terrifying saber light fell from the sky from time to time, like a blood-colored heavenly saber, chopping down on the ground. Dust rose high into the sky, leaving behind terrifying saber marks that were thousands of feet long. The battle was incomparably intense. Golden rays of light covered the sky, and tens of thousands of golden rays pierced through the void. However, it was difficult to seal the terrifying figure that was surrounded by demonic energy. Minister Dan was at a disadvantage. The natal Dharma treasure that he had refined could not compare to the Sky Demon Saber in terms of power or the nature of the Dharma treasure. After all, the Sky Demon Saber was known as the #1 saber in the world of demonic Tao. It had already given birth to a saber spirit, and was a spiritual demonic weapon. Under the control of Chu-Ji, it displayed great ferocity. Every time the saber slashed out, the blood-colored saber light filled the space between heaven and earth. The tragic sound of the saber tearing through the air was like the roar of tens of thousands of demons. It was like a soul-stealing demonic sound, causing one's mind to tremble. This was another kind of attack, an attack of sound waves. The sky demon saber had devoured the blood and essence of countless living beings. The endless resentment of the cultivators that had been devoured by the saber spirit converged into a terrifying demonic sound that could destroy one's soul. Boom, 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 boom. Tens of thousands of golden rays collided with the sky demon saber fiercely. Every time they collided, the golden rays would shatter. The blood-colored saber light was indestructible, tearing apart the golden light curtain and directly chopping out. Both of them had already used their full strength. Minister Dan's body was surging with magical power, as if he had turned into a golden sun, moving at extreme speed in the sky. He did not dare to face the sky demon saber head-on. He cultivated the metal elemental magical power. His void realm cultivation allowed him to communicate with heaven and earth, drawing upon the metal elemental power between heaven and earth. His magical power was almost endless. As for Chu Ji, he was also a peerless expert of the void realm. His demonic might was unparalleled. He could also use his demonic body to connect with heaven and earth, drawing upon the power of heaven and earth, causing the demonic aura in his body to be endless. Peerless experts of the void realm had already touched upon their own Tao. Such experts were very terrifying. They could communicate with heaven and earth, fly in the air, and truly achieve limitless magical power. They could draw upon the power of heaven and earth to replenish the magical power in their body in an instant. The two peerless experts fought until the sky darkened and the earth darkened. The vast and terrifying energy ripples that spread out caused even heaven and earth to lose their color. At this moment, Minister Dan's daoist crown that tied his hair together was nowhere to be seen. His long hair was disheveled, and there was blood at the corner of his mouth. His natal magic treasure had suffered continuous violent attacks from the sky demon saber, causing his body to also be shaken. On the other hand, Chu Ji was not much better. With every slash, a large portion of the demonic aura in his body was instantly drawn out by the sky demon saber, causing him to feel as if his body was being sucked dry. In theory, a peerless expert of the void realm could achieve an endless supply of true essence. However, such a huge consumption was too much for Chu Ji to bear. The sky demon saber was like a blood-sucking demon. If he wanted to activate the sky demon saber, he would need to consume a huge amount of demonic aura. Even if he could communicate with heaven and earth, drawing upon the power of heaven and earth to replenish his demonic aura, it was still difficult for him to last. The speed at which he replenished his demonic aura could no longer keep up with the speed at which he consumed it. "Don't run if you have the guts," Chu Ji shouted madly. His eyes were bloodshot, and he emitted an incomparably high fighting spirit. At this moment, all he wanted to do was to kill in a frenzy. However, his opponent was as slippery as a loach. He simply didn't want to confront him head-on. This made Chu Ji feel as if he didn't know where to start and where to exert his power. This made Chu Ji extremely annoyed. Dan Cheng's movement technique was extremely fast. He relied on his speed to move rapidly in the void around Chu Ji. Layers upon layers of golden shadows shot towards Chu Ji. These were the countless golden needles transformed from his natal magic treasure. Damn it! Chu Ji roared incessantly as he swung the sky demon saber, shattering all of the incoming golden lights. Although Chu Ji relied on the sky demon saber's ferocious might to gain the upper hand, it was difficult to determine the victor in this confrontation between the two peerless experts. At this time, Dongli Potian finally arrived. "Kill that brat on the ancient stone bridge for me," Chu Ji directly ordered Dongli Potian. He was entangled by Dan Chengzi, so he couldn't free himself to kill Ji Yufei. Yes. Dongli Potian immediately accepted the order and rushed towards Ji Yufei. The two were separated by a few hundred meters, but Dongli Skybreaker's speed was as fast as the wind and lightning. In just an instant, he had arrived before the ancient stone bridge. The moment he stepped onto the bridge, Ji Yufei, who was sitting cross-legged on the bridge, suddenly opened his eyes. "Ji Yufei, you can die now. Heavenly demon slaughters gods, blood slaughter 10,000 miles. Dongli Potian's long hair danced in the wind. As his hands moved, Waves of blood-colored energy surged out, illuminating the heaven and earth. It was as if a world of blood had opened up between his hands and was about to devour Ji Fei. Swoosh! Ji Fei didn't stand up, but his body retreated like a flickering shadow, leaving behind a trail of afterimages in the void. He used his extreme speed to rush out from the shroud of the evil world of blood. He then pressed his hands against the ground and soared into the sky. "You want to kill me? You don't have the right." Ji Fei's eyes emitted a blade-like glare as he directly unleashed a palm strike towards Dongli Potian. Rumble! A huge five-colored hand condensed in front of Ji Fei's palm. It quickly grew to the size of a small mountain. It emitted a frightening energy fluctuation as it rushed towards the east, parting heaven-breaking seal. Ji Fei's first move was the five-elemental annihilation palm. However, he was shocked to find that he couldn't draw upon the power of the five elements in the grand heaven and earth. Below the stone bridge was the abyss of immortals and demons. Surging demonic energy surged, and the power of the heaven and earth was extremely chaotic. Ji Fei couldn't borrow the power of the five elements to bring out the five-elemental annihilation palm to its peak. Six-path void. As Dongli Potian moved his thoughts, he used the divine ability that was passed down to him by his master. The blood-colored world seemed to collapse all of a sudden, producing an unfathomable suction force that wanted to engulf the giant palm that was enveloping it. The power of the technique also seemed to be weakened and couldn't be exerted to its limit. The power of the void couldn't devour the five-colored palm as it pressed down. Boom! With a loud sound, the mountain-like five-colored palm violently collided with the world of blood. This was a head-on collision between a martial technique and a demonic technique. It was obvious that in a confrontation between a martial technique and a demonic technique, the martial technique that broke through the law with brute force was superior. The world of blood collapsed and the five-colored palm also dimmed, but it didn't dissipate. Bang! Dongli Potian was directly sent flying out of the stone bridge by the palm, a trace of blood spilling from the corner of his mouth. Ji Fei floated down from the sky and landed on the stone bridge. After a short period of recuperation, although his injuries weren't completely healed, they were at least 80% healed. He discovered that the stone bridge wasn't a suitable place to fight. The chaotic power of the abyss of immortals and demons caused the power of the heaven and earth to be incomparably chaotic, making it difficult to draw upon the power of the outside world for one's own use. However, the source of a martial artist's strength was their body. Therefore, the influence on Ji Fei wasn't that great. To Ji Fei, drawing upon the power of the heaven and earth was only a supplementary attack. Without the sky demon saber in hand, you're nothing, Ji Fei coldly said. His internal injuries were still healing. This was the advantage of having a powerful physique. The ability to heal injuries wasn't something ordinary cultivators could compare to. Preposterous. Dongli Potian couldn't help but be enraged. He bit the tip of his tongue and spat out a mouthful of blood essence. Unexpectedly, the blood essence didn't scatter, but instead seemed to ignite, emitting a boundless bloody light. Within the bloody light, a heart-palpitating evil fluctuation spread out. One could vaguely see faint saber shadows appearing within the bloody light. Dongli Potian pointed at the bloody light in front of him. Peng! With a bang, the bloodlight formed by the essence blood suddenly exploded. Streaks of blood-colored daoist shadows broke through the void and slashed at Ji Fei in an overwhelming manner. Chapter 317. In order to kill Ji Fei, Dongli Potian didn't hesitate to damage his own vitality. He used his own blood essence to activate the demonic blood saber, condensing 81 blood-colored saber shadows with his blood essence. They blotted out the sky and covered the earth as they slashed at Ji Fei on the ancient stone bridge. The crimson blade shadows were faint and illusory, but as they rapidly streaked through the air, they emitted a heart-palpitating sound. There seemed to be tens of thousands of demons howling within the crimson light. Ji Fei moved his feet and immediately retreated to the ancient stone bridge. An unbelievable scene occurred. When the 81 blood shadow demonic blades chopped into the range of the ancient stone bridge above the abyss of immortals and demons, they immediately stopped, and their radiance quickly dimmed. Whoa! Dongli Potian felt as if he'd been struck by lightning. His body violently trembled and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Then, the 81 crimson blades that had slashed into the stone bridge rapidly faded and completely disappeared into the void. There seemed to be an unfathomable power on the stone bridge, a power capable of sealing magical arts. Dongli Potion's attack had been obliterated by this unfathomable power. How could this be? Dongli Potion had never imagined such an outcome. Apart from shock, he was also extremely depressed. Not only had his all-out attack failed to pose any threat to Ji Yufei, but it had also resulted in a great loss of vitality. The abyss of immortals and demons was a strange place. Above the abyss, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth was extremely chaotic and difficult to draw upon. The stone bridge that spanned across the abyss didn't seem to be an ordinary item either. The stone bridge stretched into the abyss of immortals and demons as far as the eye could see. Pitch-black demonic energy roiled beneath the bridge, emitting a terrifying demonic aura. It was as if a ferocious demon could rush out from beneath the stone bridge at any moment. At this time, Ji Yufei rushed back from the bridge and pressed towards Dongli Potion. His battle intent surged like a rainbow as his aura firmly locked onto Dongli Potion. Over the past few days in the extreme North Demon region, he had been hunted down by the Six Paths Demon Palace. He had been extremely frustrated. Now, it was time for him to vent his frustrations. No words were exchanged. At this moment, any words would have been superfluous. Ji Yufei directly attacked Dongli Potion. He took a step forward, leaving behind an afterimage where he was standing. He appeared in the sky above Dongli Potion as if he had teleported. Ji Yufei's foot stomped down on Dongli Potion's head like a casual stroll. A terrifying energy gushed forth from his foot, enveloping a part of the heavens and earth. It was like a gigantic mountain crushing down on Dongli Potion. Bam! Without any suspense, Dongli Potion was sent flying. Without the Sky Devil Blade, and with his vitality severely injured, Dongli Potion could no longer contend against Ji Yufei. If you want to kill me, then you'll have to be prepared to be killed. Ji Yufei's words were extremely cold. As he spoke, he took a second step towards the east-parting heaven splitter. Like a phantom, Ji Yufei caught up to Dongli Potion in the blink of an eye and took a second step towards the latter's chest. Dongli Skybreaker raised his hands in an attempt to deflect the terrifying power of the second step. However, the second step was twice as powerful as the first step. It was as if 100,000 mountains were crashing down at the same time, and it was difficult to block the shift. Crack! The bones in Dongli Potion's arms were instantly broken. He flew hundreds of meters away, blood spurting from his mouth, and fell to the ground. If this step had landed on his chest, Dongli Potion's body would have been thoroughly destroyed. Although cultivators and demonic cultivators didn't cultivate the strength of their bodies couldn't be damaged before they reached the demigod realm. Once their bodies were destroyed, their cultivation would be half crippled even if they managed to escape with the primordial demon core. Ji Yufei was about to take the third step and kill Dongli Potion on the spot, but he suddenly saw figures flickering in front of him. It was the 8 demonic cultivators who'd used the myriad demon formation to trap him. These 8 fellows were all Dongli Potion's junior brothers. Their seniority wasn't determined by who entered the sect first, but by their strength. In the past few years, Dongli Potion's strength had stood out among his fellow brothers, suppressing his peers and becoming the first senior brother. His 8 junior brothers were naturally unconvinced and constantly wanted to drag Dongli Potion down from his position as the first senior brother. The 8 of them had actually arrived a long time ago, but they'd concealed themselves to the side, coldly watching the battle between Ji Yufei and Dongli Potion. They wanted to see Dongli Potion make a fool of himself, so they didn't make a move. However, when Dongli Potion was defeated by Ji Yufei and was about to die at Ji Yufei's feet, these fellows couldn't sit still anymore. They wouldn't be able to live if they didn't help Dongli Potion. Their arrival didn't escape Chu Ji's notice. The devil flag rushed out and was grabbed by the 8 devil Dao cultivators. In an instant, it grew larger and began to dance in the air. A torrential demonic aura surged out from the banners and enveloped the entire area, trapping Ji Yufei in the myriad demon formation once more. Demonic aura surged, a chilling wind blew, and green flames danced. One could vaguely make out demonic figures within the demonic aura. It's this move again. Learning from his mistakes, Ji Yufei had already experienced the power of the myriad demon formation. Thus, he took advantage of the fact that the formation hadn't fully activated yet to unleash its full power to break through the layers of demonic aura and charge out. Bzzz. A crisp sword chime rang out as 5 illusory sword images appeared from his body and revolved around him. 8 figures walked out of the demonic aura with the banners in their hands. The one in the lead waved the banner, summoning countless demonic figures that pounced at Ji Yufei. Ji Yufei sneered. With a wave of his hand, a fiery red sword image that was fluttering by his side was drawn into his hand. After that, it transformed into a blazing sword light that was 30 meters long and slashed towards the demonic figure that was pouncing over. Boom! The demonic figures collided with the blazing sword light, causing a blinding light to erupt. The blazing sword chi of the 5 elemental sword chi was able to restrain the power of yin and evil. Amidst the blazing sword light, the demonic figures exploded one after another. The resulting energy fluctuations shook the void. It was then that the other 7 demonic cultivators waved the demonic flags in their hands at Ji Yufei. Instantly, demonic energy surged out to blot out the sky. Next, countless demonic silhouettes charged out from the demonic flags to pounce on Ji Yufei. This part of the world suddenly darkened as if it had turned into a terrifying demonic prison. It was as if countless fiends had rushed out from hell. The demonic figures howled and howled, looking extremely eerie and frightening. Ji Yufei used his 5 swords to defend himself against the attacks of the 8 demonic cultivators. However, it was still extremely strenuous. The countless demonic figures exploded with an astonishing amount of energy. It was as if incomparably vicious yin lightning was madly bombarding Ji Yufei, forcing him to continuously retreat. The 8 demonic cultivators were all at least at the transcending mortality realm. With the 8 of them working together, even Ji Yufei found it difficult to deal with them. Ji Yufei intentionally retreated towards the ancient stone bridge. He wanted to lure these fellows onto the stone bridge. Don't let him onto the stone bridge. At this time, Dongli Potion's voice rang out from within the demonic aura. At the same time, a powerful wave of energy surged out from the demonic aura. Senior brother, you, Sky Demon Disintegration. You're crazy. It was difficult to see the silhouettes within the surging demonic aura, but the voice still rang out. It seemed that something shocking had happened within the demonic aura. Roar. With a furious roar, a crazed silhouette rushed out from the demonic aura and appeared behind Ji Yufei in an instant, blocking his path of retreat. The terrifying silhouette was shrouded in demonic aura. A pair of blood-red eyes were faintly discernible within the demonic aura. An energy fluctuation as heavy as a mountain emanated from that person's body. Ji Yufei. That person's battle intent surged like a rainbow and his killing intent surged into the sky. He seemed to have uttered those 2 words through clenched teeth. Ji Yufei seemed to hear the sound of teeth grinding. No matter what secret technique you use, you won't be able to change anything, Ji Yufei coldly said. He already knew who this person was, but even so, he was still somewhat astonished. In such a short period of time, the heavily injured Dongli Potian seemed to have been reborn. His strength seemed to have risen to an unimaginable level, but he still wasn't Lin Fan's match. Is that so? Dongli Potion's words didn't contain the slightest bit of emotion that a human should have. It was as if he had transformed into a devil. Then, a huge pitch-black hand condensed in front of him and grabbed at Ji Yufei. Ji Yufei was surrounded by enemies from all sides. Dongli Potian had also blocked the path to the stone bridge. He was in a perilous situation. It would be very troublesome if he didn't rush out. Great 5 Elemental Annihilation Palm. Ji Yufei blocked the attacks of the 8 demonic cultivators with his 5 sword shadows, then met Dongli Potion's palm with his own. Bang! The 5-colored palm of light collided with the huge pitch-black hand. The power of the 5 elements and the demonic energy exploded at the same time. A terrifying energy storm swept out in all directions, causing the earth to violently tremble and a circle of dust to sweep out. The demonic flag emitted layers upon layers of demonic aura, but it was instantly dispersed by this energy storm. The 8 demonic cultivators cried out in alarm and retreated far away. These guys were extremely cunning. They retreated as soon as they sensed danger. The 2 giant hands that had been condensed from energy collapsed and disappeared into the void at the same time. The remaining power that had erupted from them had caused the ground between the 2 of them to sink down, forming a huge pit with a diameter of 100 feet. In this exchange, Jiyu Fei stood tall like a mountain, while Dongli Potian staggered 3 steps back. He had to admit that he wouldn't be a match for Jiyu Fei even if he used the Heavenly Demon Disintegration secret art without the Heavenly Demon Saber. What Heavenly Demon Disintegration art? It's just SOSO. Jiyu Fei pressed forward with large strides. He threw a simple punch. His movement was very slow. It looked like an ordinary punch, but the powerful oppressive feeling was like the edge of a blade. It forcefully cut off a few feet of sand from the ground, causing smoke and dust to billow. The 8 demonic cultivators who retreated felt a dull pain on their faces, as if they were being scratched by a blade. Yi Shiwen's right fist erupted with a dazzling golden radiance. The astral wind was vast and mighty. The golden radiance was like a monstrous wave, fiercely slapping towards Dongli Potian. This was the metal element fist of the 5 elements fist. It wasn't a magical technique, nor was it a magical technique. However, it was even better than magical techniques and magical techniques. It was a true martial arts combat skill. Such a combat skill would be hard to find in the younger generation. This book. Chapter 318. Dongli Potian felt an unprecedented pressure. At this moment, a sense of helplessness arose in his heart. His opponent was like an undefeatable god of war. His opponent's strength had far exceeded Dongli Potian's imagination. Although Jiyu Fei's golden fist was advancing slowly, it had sealed off all of Dongli Potian's escape routes. The moment he dodged, the fist that contained the boundless power of the metal element would arrive in an instant and deal him a fatal blow. "You bunch of trash." Chu Ji's furious voice resounded in the sky. "If you don't kill that brat, I'll kill you all." Chu Ji, who was fighting with Minister Dan, noticed the situation over here and couldn't help but be enraged. However, he was being held back by Minister Dan and couldn't escape for the time being. The pressure was as heavy as a mountain. Jiyu Fei was like a terrifying ancient divine mountain as he moved forward. The power of the metal element fist shook the void and illuminated the heavens and earth with a golden radiance. Boom! Without any suspense, Jiyu Fei's fist energy was unstoppable. Dongli Potian was sent flying and landed on the stone bridge behind him with traces of blood seeping out from the corner of his mouth. He was somewhat dejected and disheartened. The Sky Demon Disintegration secret technique had increased his strength by 2 levels, reaching the peak of the 6th sky of the Ascended Realm. However, he still couldn't contend against Jiyu Fei. It seemed like his opponent's cultivation was indeed a level higher than his. This was the embodiment of absolute strength. Dongli Potian's defeat wasn't undeserved. Jiyu Fei had firmly suppressed his opponent, but he didn't relax in the slightest. He continued to press forward and threw another punch at Dongli Potian. He didn't want to give his opponent any chance to turn the situation around. Earth Element Fist. A dusky aura enveloped this part of the world, as if the world had returned to primal chaos. A terrifying earth elemental fist energy surged forward, enveloping Dongli Skybreaker on the ancient stone bridge. After hearing Chu Ji's words, Dongli Potian's 8 junior brothers instantly became ferocious and charged towards Jiyu Fei. Who? The devil flag fluttered in the wind, and green flames gushed out from the surface of the flag. The devil chi blotted out the sky, and a terrifying power surged out from the devil flag, condensing into numerous devil shadows, rushing towards Jiyu Fei. No one doubted Chu Ji's words. Even if these people were his disciples, if they made a mistake or disobeyed his orders, their fates would be miserable. One word from Chu Ji was enough to force Dongli Potian and the others to fight Jiyu Fei to the death. Infernal hell! Dongli Potian wasn't one to sit and wait for death. He waved his hands and a terrifying power surged out from the profound mysteries, blocking the way forward. However, Dongli Potion's body shuddered violently when the vast amount of energy formed a giant vortex in front of him. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and the spell he'd condensed instantly dispersed. The greyish aura that covered the sky and covered the earth also quickly dimmed when it rushed into the ancient stone bridge. There seemed to be an unfathomable power on the stone bridge that suppressed all power. Not only spell arts, but even martial arts and battle techniques were being suppressed. However, Ji Fei's fist energy was as heavy as a mountain. Although it was weakening, it still struck Dongli Potian. Bang! Dongli Potian was sent flying. At this time, Ji Fei made his move, raising his speed to the limit as if he teleported. Swish! He disappeared from where he was standing. He rushed onto the ancient stone bridge and instantly caught up to Dongli Skybreaker, who had been sent flying. He threw a punch at Dongli Skybreaker's chest. Dongli Potian was shocked out of his wits and raised his arm to block. Crack! The bones in his arm broke once again, and he fell heavily onto the bridge. He slid backward for 20 to 30 feet before he managed to stabilize himself. Not only had Ji Fei broken out of the 8 demonic cultivators' encirclement, but he'd also stepped onto the stone bridge and knocked Dongli Potian back with a single punch. The 8 demonic cultivators waving their flags were inwardly shocked. None of them had expected Ji Fei to be so strong. Dongli Potian was forced to retreat, blood seeping out of the corner of his mouth. By now, everyone had realized that there was something strange about this stone bridge that spanned across the abyss of immortals and demons. On the stone bridge, Ji Fei's martial arts and battle techniques had been affected by the unfathomable power of the abyss and couldn't leak out of his body. However, Ji Fei's strength came from his physical body, so he was much less affected than the demonic cultivators. As a result, Dongli Potian and his junior brothers were even less of a match for Ji Fei. Ji Fei continued to force his way towards Dongli Potian. His power was suppressed within his body. Although his body didn't emit the 5-colored radiance, the energy ripples that were as heavy as a mountain were still enough to make people's hearts palpitate. Kill! The 8 demonic cultivators roared, waving their flags as they charged onto the stone bridge. However, the moment they set foot on the stone bridge, Ji Fei abruptly retreated, leaving behind an afterimage. Peng! 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 The first 4 demonic path cultivators that rushed onto the ancient stone bridge were immediately sent flying away. The other 4 demonic path cultivators were shocked. They only saw the shadows of fists flashing in front of them as 4 fists smashed into them almost at the same time. The 4 demonic cultivators immediately waved the demonic flags in their hands and blocked in front of them. Peng! The demonic flags that were surrounded by demonic chi instantly collided with the incoming fist. The ferocious fist energy sent the 4 demonic cultivators flying as if they'd been struck by lightning. What's going on? Our magic power seems to be suppressed. The legend of the abyss of immortals and demons seems to be true. The 8 demonic cultivators who'd stepped onto the stone bridge were instantly sent flying by Ji Fei, but they weren't surprised by Ji Fei's strength. What made them inexplicably shocked was that the moment they stepped onto the ancient stone bridge, the surging demonic power in their bodies was quickly suppressed. It seemed that even the demonic flag in their hands could not display the power it should have, as if it had become an ordinary object. However, when they were sent flying by Ji Fei, the feeling of their cultivation being suppressed immediately disappeared as if it had never existed. The stone bridge spanned across the abyss of immortals and demons. It was impossible to see the end of it, and no one knew how far the other side was. Below the stone bridge was the violent demonic aura, and the power of heaven and earth was extremely chaotic. On the stone bridge, Ji Fei's cultivation was also suppressed. This situation seemed to be similar to the situation in the virtual sky world, where there was also a mysterious power that imprisoned the cultivator's cultivation. Those who entered the virtual sky world, whether they were transcending mortality cultivators or peerless void controlling cultivators, were all confined to the self-awakening realm. The feeling of being suppressed and unable to exert their power, of being unable to use their divine abilities and Daoist techniques, was something that those transcending mortality cultivators who'd entered the virtual sky world would remember for the rest of their lives. Inside the virtual sky world, Ji Yufei didn't feel depressed because his cultivation hadn't broken through to the transcending mortality realm. But now, standing on the stone bridge, he felt suppressed. He strode toward Dongli Potian, who was constantly retreating. He wanted to use a battle skill to kill Dongli Potian, but he felt that all of his power was imprisoned inside his body, making it difficult for him to use a short-kill battle skill. At this time, the advantage of having a powerful physical body showed itself. Although Ji Yufei couldn't use powerful battle skills, the strength of his physical body alone was enough for Ji Yufei to contend against cultivators below the 6th layer of the transcending mortality realm. Pushing off the ground with both feet, Ji Yufei shot forward like an arrow. His speed was as fast as the wind and lightning. This was the power of his physical body. In the blink of an eye, he arrived in front of Dongli Potian. Bang! His fist landed on Dongli Potian's abdomen. Dongli Potian's body immediately arched like a prawn, and he coughed up a mouthful of blood. Dongli Potian took a punch from Ji Yufei. He felt as if his internal organs were about to be displaced. His internal organs felt like they were about to be overturned. He immediately suffered from internal injuries. Blood spurted out from his mouth and nose. Ji Yufei followed up with an elbow strike, ruthlessly striking Dongli Potian's arched back. Bang! Dongli Potian's body came into intimate contact with the ground. Ji Yufei's physical body was extremely tyrannical, and his close-quarters combat experience was even more abundant. In an instant, he had knocked Dongli Potian to the ground with lightning speed. In a battle against a cultivator, it was a nightmare for both cultivators and demonic cultivators to be forced into close quarters. Cough, cough. Dongli Potian coughed up mouthfuls of blood. His body had suffered serious injuries, and his spine had almost been fractured by Ji Yufei's fierce elbow strike. I already said that no matter what secret technique you use, it won't change anything. You are destined to be defeated by me, Ji Yufei coldly said as he stepped on Dongli Potian's head. As long as he exerted some force, he would be able to crush Dongli Potian's head. This was an undisguised insult. Dongli Potian was enraged. Having his head trampled on by someone almost caused his mind to collapse. A beast-like roar erupted from his throat. He wanted to struggle free from Ji Yufei's foot, but Ji Yufei's right foot was like a mountain, firmly pressing down on his head. He was powerless to resist. Seeing that Dongli Potian's life was hanging by a thread, the 8 demonic cultivators beneath the stone bridge couldn't care less anymore. They all waved their demonic flags and rushed onto the bridge. The demonic flags had already lost their power, but as transcending mortality cultivators, their martial arts were still quite impressive. The 8 demonic cultivators directly waved their demonic flags at Ji Yufei. With their cultivation suppressed by the mysterious power of the stone bridge, they couldn't use any demonic techniques. These demonic cultivators were like toothless tigers, unable to pose a threat to Ji Yufei. Ji Yufei casually waved his hand to parry the incoming demonic flags. Each of his moves contained a tremendous force, causing the 8 demonic cultivators to stumble back. The demonic flags in their hands almost flew out of their hands. Chapter 319. Above the abyss of immortals and demons, there was an ancient stone bridge that spanned across the abyss. There was an unfathomable power on the stone bridge that suppressed everyone's cultivation, making it so that the demonic cultivators couldn't use any magical arts or divine abilities. Ji Yufei wasn't an exception. He couldn't use any powerful martial arts or battle skills. However, the restrictive power on the ancient stone bridge gave Ji Yufei the upper hand in his confrontation with the demonic cultivators. The physical body was the source of a cultivator's strength. It contained an enormous amount of power. Even though he couldn't use martial arts or battle skills, Ji Yufei's strength didn't decrease because of this. However, the demonic cultivators were different. The suppression of magical arts and divine abilities on the ancient stone bridge meant that they had lost their greatest support. These cultivators weren't body-refining cultivators. Their physiques were much weaker than normal cultivators. Every muscle in Ji Yufei's body seemed to be on fire. Although the power was confined within his body, the power that erupted from his flesh and bones was still as heavy as a mountain. The clothes on his upper body had long been torn to shreds. The muscles on his bronze-colored body weren't particularly bulky, but they gave off a feeling of great power. The surging 5 elements yuan qi surged within his body, but it couldn't penetrate his body. It was forcefully suppressed within. His bronze-colored skin seemed to be flowing with a layer of precious splendor. "You can die now," Ji Fei said indifferently. He was about to stomp down on Dongli Potion's head with his right foot. But right at this moment, a gust of wind blew at Ji Fei's face. Ji Fei's heart skipped a beat as he was sent flying by a powerful force. "Brat, it's not up to you to kill my people." Under the illumination of the blood-colored saber light, a tall figure chased after the flying Ji Fei with large strides. In the end, Chu Ji managed to break free from Dan Cheng's entanglement and rushed onto the stone bridge in time to save Dongli Potian. Otherwise, this outstanding disciple of his would've had his head crushed by Ji Fei. "A bunch of trash. There are so many of you, yet you can't kill this brat. I even have to do it myself. What's the use of having you all?" Chu Ji scolded. He was very disappointed with his disciples. Dongli Potian crawled up from the ground, his body on the verge of collapse. His injuries weren't light at all. After hearing Chu Ji's words, his face was filled with shame. He was the most outstanding person in the younger generation of the Six Paths Devil Palace. He was known as the #1 expert of the younger generation in the Monarch City. He had never been in such a sorry state before. At this moment, Dongli Potion's hatred for Ji Fei had reached its peak. 2 beams of extreme hatred shot out from his eyes. He wanted nothing more than to tear Ji Fei into 1,000 pieces in order to vent the resentment in his heart and wash away the humiliation he had suffered. "Chu Ji, your opponent is me." At this moment, an angry roar came from the distant sky. Bang! With a loud bang, a mass of bloody light exploded, and a figure shining with golden light rushed out of the bloody light. Swoosh! A golden rainbow broke through the sky and shot towards the abyss of immortals and demons. As if it had shattered the void, a golden figure landed beside the abyss of immortals and demons like a meteor. Dan Chengzi broke through Chu Ji's blockade and arrived at the ancient stone bridge beside the abyss of immortals and demons. Without thinking, he rushed onto the ancient stone bridge. The moment he rushed onto the ancient stone bridge, the golden light on Dan Chengzi's body immediately dissipated. The leaking metal elemental magical power was suppressed back into his body. "Stop him," Chu Ji directly ordered his disciples. He himself waved the Sky Devil Saber and fiercely slashed at Ji Fei. Preposterous! Ji Fei quickly dodged with the 8 Desolation Steps. Even though he couldn't truly use the 8 extreme steps of the 8 Desolation Steps, his mysterious footwork allowed him to continuously dodge the slashes of the Sky Devil Saber. The Sky Devil Saber, known as the #1 Devil Saber in the world, seemed to be suppressed by the mysterious power of the Abyss of Immortals and Demons or the ancient stone bridge. It was unable to display its power. Chu Ji waved the Devil Saber but was unable to produce a 1,000-meter-long blade light. The blood-red Devil Saber trembled repeatedly, as if it was afraid and uneasy. The Sky Devil Saber, at this moment, revealed its true appearance. It was a blood-red weapon, covered with blood-red demonic runes, exuding an endless evil aura. On the body of the saber, there seemed to be streams of blood flowing, and there seemed to be countless blood-red shadows appearing, howling and wanting to rush out from the body of the saber. It was incomparably evil. The 8 disciples of Chu Ji waved their devil flags and surrounded Minister Dan, who was rushing onto the ancient stone bridge. The devil flags in their hands were able to emit thousands of feet of devil chi. At this moment, they were no different from ordinary flags. Although Dan Cheng's magical power could not be released and was suppressed within his body, he was after all a peerless expert of the void controlling realm and had rich combat experience. He directly rushed into the crowd, punching and kicking, beating up the 8 devil Dao cultivators. In an instant, he rushed out from the midst of the 8 devil Dao cultivators. Dongli Potian wanted to stop him, but was kicked in the chest by Dan Chengzi, causing him to fall and heavily hit the railing of the ancient stone bridge. If it wasn't for the railing of the ancient stone bridge, Dongli Potian would have fallen into the abyss of immortals and demons below the ancient stone bridge. Even so, Dan Cheng's kick made him spit out a mouthful of blood, and his expression was extremely weary. The abyss of immortals and demons was an evil place. On the side of the northern devil domain, the vast and mighty devil chi under the ancient stone bridge formed a pitch-black sea of devil chi. The mysterious power suppressed the cultivation of the peerless experts of the void-controlling realm. It seemed that all the power released by the cultivators was suppressed. Dao techniques, divine abilities, martial techniques, as long as it was an attack in the form of power release, it would all be rendered ineffective. No divine abilities or magical arts could be used on the ancient stone bridge. All the cultivators on the ancient stone bridge could only fight in close combat like ordinary people. For a martial artist, this was definitely a great advantage. Whether it was a cultivator or a devil Dao cultivator, their bodies were not as strong as a martial artist's. Not being able to use magical arts or divine abilities was tantamount to cutting off their greatest reliance. However, a martial artist's greatest reliance was their well-tempered physical body. Bam! Ji Fei's palm slammed on the back of the Sky Devil saber, shaking it away. His right leg was like a divine whip, sweeping towards Chu Ji's waist. When he saw that Chu Ji couldn't use magical arts or divine abilities on the ancient stone bridge, Ji Fei immediately felt relieved and decisively counterattacked. Close combat was a martial artist's strength. Damn it! Chu Ji's knee struck Ji Fei's sweeping right leg. Ji Fei's right leg struck Ji Fei's knee. It was like two pieces of divine iron violently colliding, and the sound of metal colliding rang out. This was a collision of pure physical strength. Chu Ji's body had been transformed by the demonic god's blood from God Demon Island and had also become incomparably powerful. Ji Fei felt as if his right leg had struck an incomparably hard iron stone. The powerful recoil caused his right leg to go numb. Ji Fei decisively retreated. He was very surprised. Chu Ji's body was so strong that it didn't seem to be any weaker than his own. The power that erupted from Chu Ji's body seemed to be even stronger and more ferocious than his own. Just as Ji Fei was being forced back by Chu Ji, Minister Dan arrived. He took out an ancient sword from his magic treasure pouch, and with a kai sound, he directly stabbed it towards Chu Ji's back. Magic treasures were ineffective. On the ancient stone bridge, only such an attack could injure the other party. Chu Ji spun the heavenly devil saber and flipped it towards Minister Dan's ancient sword. He wanted to use the sharpness of the heavenly devil saber to break Minister Dan's ancient sword. Minister Dan knew that the ancient sword in his hand wouldn't be able to block the heavenly devil saber, so he hastily retracted his sword. Then his body moved along with the sword, stabbing it towards Chu Ji's dantian. The dantian was incomparably important to cultivators and devil Dao cultivators. This was because it was where the Dao nascent and devil nascent resided. It was the source of power for cultivators and devil Dao cultivators. Chu Ji's devil nascent had long since been devoured by a nameless devil god descendant on God Demon Island. He had spent a great deal of effort to use his second primordial spirit to cultivate a devil nascent again, and he viewed it as more important than his own life. Seeing Minister Dan's sword stabbing towards his dantian, Chu Ji couldn't help being infuriated. At the same time, his hand sank and the heavenly devil saber slashed downwards, blocking Minister Dan's ancient sword. At the same time, he punched towards Minister Dan's face. Chu Ji's physique was incomparably strong, and his fist energy was even more ferocious by Ji Fei. Minister Dan only felt a sharp pain from the wind blowing against his face. He couldn't help but be startled and hastily jumped back to dodge. A peerless void-controlling expert in the cultivation world, on the ancient stone bridge, was like a warrior in the secular world. Punches and kicks were exchanged, and sword slashes were exchanged. If others were to see this scene, they would definitely be dumbfounded. One had to know that a void-controlling expert in the cultivation world was also an expert of a generation. They had the power to move mountains and seas, and they had great divine abilities. Once such a figure engaged in a battle, it would definitely be earth-shattering. Even a casual divine ability or spell technique would be able to destroy a forest or blast a mountain to pieces. However, on the ancient stone bridge, even a void-controlling expert could only be like an ordinary person, fighting in close combat. The abyss of immortals and devils was difficult for mortals and immortals. All spells and divine abilities were rendered useless here. This was the barrier between the northern devil domain and the central plains. Regardless of immortals or mortals, they could only cross the ancient stone bridge to travel between the northern devil domain and the central plains. Of course, if the devil Dao cultivators of the extreme northern devil region wanted to enter the central plains, they didn't necessarily have to go through the abyss of immortals and demons. The extreme northern devil region's 9 great forces all had transmission arrays built in secret places in the central plains. They could directly teleport from their respective giant cities to the central plains. As for the major forces of the central plains, they also had hidden teleportation arrays on the barren land of the northern devil domain. They could also travel freely between the northern devil domain and the central plains without going through the abyss of immortals and devils. Chapter 320. Ji Yufei and Dan Chengzi were fighting together on the ancient stone bridge of the abyss of immortals and demons, the first son of the demon lord, Chu Ji. Ji Yufei's fists were constantly clashing with the sky demon saber, as ferocious as a ferocious beast. He had transferred the essence of the divine weapon in his body to his fists. His fists now possessed the characteristics of a divine weapon. The weapon refinement technique was extremely wondrous, as if it had been specially created for cultivators. Although all the power was suppressed within his body, the essence of the divine weapon in Ji Yufei's body could still circulate as he wished. The only thing lacking was that the sword qi could not leave his body. My goodness! What kind of divine ability is this? You dare to face the sky demon saber head-on? Chu Ji was astonished that Ji Yufei had used his fists to block the sky demon saber. Swish! 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 Chu Ji slashed out 3 times. Although there was no saber light that shot out from the sky demon saber, it was still enough to force Ji Yufei back. Compete. Ji Yufei sneered, not replying. After stabilizing himself, he lowered his body and pushed off the ground with both feet, leaping into the air. Like a ferocious tiger descending a mountain, he pounced towards Chu Ji. Ji Yufei had used a move that he had learned from a ferocious tiger when he was cultivating in the mountains. As he pounced, astral winds rose, displaying the might of a tiger king pouncing on its prey. You're courting death. Chu Ji blocked Dan Chengzi's sword move. With a loud shout, he raised his saber with both hands, exerting the strength of his body to the extreme. With all his strength, he slashed down at the charging Ji Yufei. The demonic and fiend god energy in Chu Ji's body surged violently. Although it could not leave his body and transform into a terrifying storm of energy, the full power of this strike was still astonishing. The blood-red blade of the sky demon saber emitted a blinding blood-red light, and the blood-red demonic runes looked as if they were coming to life. Although its power was suppressed and the blood-red saber did not emit any unparalleled saber aura, Chu Ji's attack still caused a blood-red light to spread from the sky demon saber. Just as the sky demon blade was about to strike Ji Yufei's figure suddenly disappeared. The sky demon blade suddenly lost its target. Chu Ji was shocked. He discovered that Ji Yufei was actually like a spirit snake, scuttling from the air to the ground in an instant. Sticking close to the ground, he scuttled towards him. Ji Yufei's momentum was so fast that Chu Ji had no time to change his move. Then, he felt his body tighten. Ji Yufei had already scuttled behind him like a giant snake, coiling around him. Ha! Ji Yufei shouted, and his aura suddenly changed. An incomparably fierce aura emanated from his body, and his whole person seemed to have become a violent giant bear. The 4 limbs that were wrapped around Chu Ji suddenly tightened. Tiger Pounce, Snake Move, and Bear Hug were the 3 killing moves that Ji Yufei had learned from the beasts on Taishan Mountain when he was fighting them. Chu Ji, who was being hugged by Ji Yufei in a bear hug, felt as if all the bones in his body were being crushed, and there was a series of crackling sounds coming from his body. Kill. At this time, Dan Chengzi roared and rushed forward with his sword. The ancient sword in his hand turned into a cold light, piercing straight between Chu Ji's eyebrows. At this time, Chu Ji could no longer maintain his composure. He felt the threat of death. Roar. Chu Ji struggled with all his might. His black hair danced wildly, all standing on end. A majestic power surged out from his body. He wanted to shake off Jiyu Fei, who was wrapped around him. A tyrannical power exploded from Chu Ji's body. Jiyu Fei's body trembled as if he had been struck by lightning. A trace of blood spilled from the corner of his mouth, but his hands and feet were still firmly wrapped around Chu Ji. Jiyu Fei's physical body was also extremely strong. Although his body had suffered a great impact, Chu Ji could not break free from Jiyu Fei's entanglement for a while. Fut! At this critical moment, fut! The ancient sword in Dan Cheng's hand turned into a cold light, and suddenly pierced between Chu Ji's eyebrows. Ah! Chu Ji roared crazily, and a terrifying wave of energy exploded from his body. Jiyu Fei bore the brunt of it, and this time, he could no longer endure. After spitting out a mouthful of blood, his body was also blown away by the huge force from Chu Ji's body. Chu Ji's appearance was extremely ferocious. His hair was disheveled, and there was an ancient sword in his forehead. He crazily brandished the heavenly devil blade, forcing Dan Cheng's away. Dan Cheng's ancient sword was nailed to Chu Ji's forehead. That ancient sword didn't seem to be an ordinary object, as it could actually stab Chu Ji. If it was an ordinary cultivator, they would have died long ago. However, Chu Ji didn't die. The blood of the fiend god made him nearly immortal. To kill him, one needed to use special methods. Ah! Chu Ji's hair was a mess, and his eyes were flickering with an ominous light. His expression became extremely crazed. The ancient sword in his forehead was slowly forced out by him, and with a clang, it fell to the ground. All of you must die. Chu Ji roared crazily, a violent aura emanating from his body, as if a terrifying demon had awakened within him. Chu Ji seemed to have sunk into madness. Both Jiyu Fei and Dan Cheng's were shocked. They noticed that there wasn't a single drop of blood coming out from the sword in Chu Ji's forehead. Instead, the hole was healing at a visible rate. It wasn't just Jiyu Fei and Dan Cheng's, even Dongli Potian and his junior brothers were frightened by this scene. The 8 demonic cultivators that Dan Cheng's had knocked to the ground couldn't be bothered with moaning in pain as they scrambled away. The heavily injured Dongli Potian also struggled to move his body away from the stone bridge. Let's go. At this time, Minister Dan could also see that something was wrong with Chu Ji. He rushed to Chu Ji's side, pulled him up, and rushed towards the central plains. At this time, Chu Ji's pupils emitted a heart-palpitating bloody light. The whites of his eyes had turned as black as ink, faintly suffused with demonic energy. These were the eyes of a demonic god, a sign that Chu Ji had sunk into a frenzied state of slaughter. Although the sword in his forehead hadn't killed Chu Ji, it had driven him into a state of madness. In his frenzy, Chu Ji only had one thought: kill, kill, kill. Any living thing that came his way would be slain by him. Roar. Chu Ji roared like a crazed demon as he chased after Dan Cheng's and Jiyu Fei with the Sky Devil Saber in hand. On the stone bridge, the peerless Void Realm experts had lost their ability to fly and could only rely on their legs to run. Dongli Potian heaved a sigh of relief when he saw Chu Ji chasing after Jiyu Fei and Dan Cheng's. He seemed to know what had happened to Chu Ji. It had to be said that the immortal demon abyss was truly wide, and the stone bridge was truly long. Jiyu Fei and Dan Cheng's had been running on the bridge for half an hour, but the demonic energy was still surging beneath the bridge. There was still no end in sight. Behind them, Chu Ji carried the number 1 demonic saber under the heavens and roared like a wild beast. His body emitted a boundless baleful aura as he chased after them. After running for another 10 li, Jiyu Fei suddenly felt an incomparably comfortable immortal aura wash over him. Then, he saw a bizarre scene. The rumbling, pitch-black demonic aura under the ancient stone bridge had disappeared. It was replaced by a white mist with an immortal aura and a faint glow. At the place where the demonic aura and the immortal aura intersected, a black line extended into the sky. Only now did Jiyu Fei understand why this bottomless abyss was called the Immortal Demon Abyss. It was a bizarre place where both demonic and immortal aura coexisted. What Jiyu Fei didn't know was that the Abyss of Immortals and Demons was actually one of the few ominous lands in the Tenglong continent. Countless experts had entered the abyss of immortals and demons in order to find out what secrets were hidden in the abyss that could actually allow demon chi and immortal chi to coexist in it. However, none of those who went down were able to come back up from the abyss of immortals and demons. Without exception, none of them returned. No one knew what dangers lay beneath the immortal demon abyss. No one knew what kind of misfortune would befall those who entered the abyss. Over time, the immortal demon abyss became a dangerous and ominous place that no one was willing to go down. Very quickly, Ji Yufei and Dan Chengzi rushed from one side where the demonic energy surged to the side where the immortal aura lingered. The end of the stone bridge was still in sight. The power in his body was still forcefully suppressed within his body. He could not use any Dao techniques or divine abilities. They were still ineffective. The immortal chi below the ancient stone bridge was incomparably chaotic. It was difficult for him to use it. Oh no! Suddenly, Dan Chengzi's expression changed. Then, Ji Yufei saw a group of people approaching from the bridge. Because it was far away, he couldn't see how many people there were. "Martial uncle, what's going on?" Ji Yufei asked. Although he spoke, he didn't slow down at all. He was still running as if he was flying, closely following behind Dan Chengzi. Dan Chengzi naturally knew what Ji Yufei was asking. He replied, "Those are traveling merchants from the Central Plains to the Northern Devil region. I didn't expect to meet a traveling merchant group at this time." "What? They actually dare to do business with people from the Devil Dao?" Ji Yufei was taken aback when he heard this. Merchants chase after money. As long as there's money to be made, there's nothing they wouldn't dare to do. Dan Chengzi said disapprovingly. He seemed to understand merchants very well. Although their strength was suppressed by the mysterious power within their body, their running speed was still as fast as lightning. In just a short while, Ji Yufei and Dan Chengzi were already close to the traveling merchant group. They saw that the traveling merchant group actually had about 200 to 300 people. Their carriages were filled with goods and they were slowly moving forward on the stone bridge. Someone in the caravan noticed something strange in front of them. A middle-aged man riding a tall horse waved his hand, and the caravan stopped. The middle-aged man was about to shout, but he didn't expect that the people in front of him didn't have any intention of stopping. Who? Two sounds were heard. Two silhouettes rushed past the middle-aged man, bringing with them a strong wind that caused his face to feel a faint pain. The middle-aged man was shocked. He was about to curse, but he swallowed it back into his stomach. He didn't dare to offend such an expert. Just at this time, a beast-like roar resounded in front of them. A fierce evil chi surged from the front, and all the horses in the traveling merchant group immediately neighed in fright. Before the middle-aged man who was clearing the path in front of the caravan could see what was happening, he saw a blood-red light infinitely magnifying in his eyes. His last consciousness was forever stuck on that blood-red light that had suddenly appeared. Peng! The middle-aged man and his horse were split into two halves. The horse's corpse and the man's corpse flew to the sides and fell into the abyss of immortals and demons. In an instant, they disappeared under the ancient stone bridge that was covered in white mist. A frightening demonic shadow rushed out from the exploding blood-red rain. It was like a crazy demon, and it roared as it pounced into the crowd. In an instant, blood and flesh flew everywhere, and miserable screams and wails filled the air. The crowd was in chaos, and the merchants and guards fled in panic. There were even some people who fell off the ancient stone bridge in the midst of the chaos, and their miserable screams echoed in the air. Chu Ji, who had fallen into a state of madness, only knew how to kill. He brandished the demonic blade, and as if he was chopping vegetables, he harvested the lives of these unlucky people. The people who were cut by him were quickly devoured by the demonic blade, and even their souls were absorbed into the blade, becoming nourishment for the demonic blade. Just as Chu Ji was slaughtering the merchants and guards in front of him to his heart's content, a figure suddenly approached Chu Ji. Bang! A fist fiercely landed on Chu Ji's head. The strength of the fist was as heavy as 1,000 catties, and Chu Ji staggered a few steps to the side. Quickly run! After Ji Yufei's fist had forced Chu Ji back, he shouted at the merchants who were fleeing in all directions. Ha! Chu Ji shook his head, and a pair of blood-red eyes emitted an evil bloody light. He fiercely stared at Ji Yufei, and then roared as he rushed towards Ji Yufei. Shua! The demonic blade quickly moved in the air, and turned into a bloody light, sweeping towards Ji Yufei's waist, wanting to cut Ji Yufei into two pieces. Ji Yufei decisively retreated, avoiding the demonic blade's slash, and turned around to escape. He successfully attracted Chu Ji's attention, and Chu Ji roared and waved the demonic blade, chasing after Ji Yufei. Both of them ran at an incomparably fast speed, and in a short while, they rushed past the merchant caravan, and quickly disappeared into the distance. At this time, the merchants and guards still did not know what had happened. Everyone was stunned, and for no reason, a terrible disaster had befallen them. The 200 to 300 people in the caravan were scattered, and some of them were directly knocked off the ancient stone bridge by Chu Ji, and fell into the abyss of immortals and demons. In the blink of an eye, the caravan had lost dozens of people. Fighting with Chu Ji, who had fallen into a state of madness, was full of uncertainties, especially on the ancient stone bridge of the abyss of immortals and demons. If they fell into the abyss of immortals and demons, they would die, but if they rushed to the other side, the situation would be different. Therefore, Ji Yufei and Dan Chengzi rushed forward with all their might. Like this, they ran on the ancient stone bridge for half an hour. At this time, a large piece of land was reflected in Ji Yufei's eyes. Chapter 321. Northern Wei was one of the three great empires in the Central Plains. It was a super empire that dominated thousands of miles of land in the north. Northern Wei and the Northern Demon region were neighbors, separated only by the abyss of immortals and demons. The abyss of immortals and demons was extremely difficult to deal with. Here, all divine abilities and Dao techniques would be rendered useless. Immortal Qi and demonic Qi coexisted, but they were clearly separated, forming a rare sight in the abyss of immortals and demons. The northern mountain pass was built in front of the ancient stone bridge in the abyss of immortals and demons. Anyone who entered the northern demon region from northern Wei would be strictly interrogated. In fact, other than cultivators and merchants, very few people passed through the northern mountain pass and stepped onto the ancient stone bridge to enter the northern demon region. Other than the 9 great cities and the Lost Forest, the northern demon region was a barren wasteland covered in frost. It could be said that there was a shortage of resources. In order to make a huge profit, some large merchant groups or merchants would form caravans to enter the northern demon region from time to time. Although entering the extreme North Devil region was very risky, under the stimulation of high profits, taking a risk was also worth it. The northern mountain pass was guarded by the northern Wei elite soldiers. Of course, the soldiers of the mortal world, even if they were elites, would not be able to resist the demonic cultivators from the northern demon region. However, it was rumored that the northern mountain city, 30 miles behind the northern mountain pass, was guarded by a peerless demonic cultivator. Ji Yufei and Dan Chengzi rushed all the way from the ancient stone bridge. Behind them, Chu Ji, who had fallen into a state of madness, chased after them with the sky devil blade in hand. One in front, one behind, the two of them were as fast as lightning. When they got close to Beeling Pass, the soldiers on top of the gate tower noticed them from afar. A horn sounded from the gate tower. Groups of armored soldiers armed with spears rushed out from all over Beeling Pass. A group of archers lined up on top of the gate tower, narked their arrows, and aimed at Ji Yufei, Dan Chengzi, and the crazed Chu Ji who were rushing over from the ancient stone bridge. Halt! Otherwise, you will be killed without mercy. A mighty middle-aged man clad in battle armor, who looked like a general, stood on top of the city gate tower and shouted loudly. This man was full of energy, and his voice traveled far. Marshal uncle, what should we do? Ji Yufei asked Minister Dan with a frown when he saw the incomparably nervous soldiers on the city walls. Ji Yufei and Dan Chengzi did not stop and continued to rush forward. Let's charge straight through, Minister Dan said. He completely disregarded the threat of the general on the city tower and continued to rush towards the city gate. The northern mountain pass stood beside the abyss of immortals and demons, and the ancient stone bridge faced the city gates of the northern mountain pass. If Ji Yufei and Minister Dan wanted to pass through, They would have to break through the tightly shut city gates or directly cross the city tower. In the blink of an eye, Ji Yufei and Minister Dan had rushed forward another 100 feet. Seeing that Ji Yufei and Minister Dan didn't stop, the general on the city gate tower couldn't help panicking a little. One had to know that the people who came over from the extreme northern Devil region were all dangerous characters. Fire! Fire! Shoot them to death! This general in charge of guarding the northern mountain pass had the power of life and death. Once he felt that something was wrong, he could order the people from the extreme northern Devil region to be shot to death. Kai! 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 Countless arrows suddenly shot out from the city gate tower towards Minister Dan, Ji Yufei, and Chu Ji, who was hot on their heels. Something's wrong. Ji Yufei could see that the arrows that were shot at them from the city gate tower were not ordinary arrowheads. He noticed that the arrowhead of each arrow was glowing with a blue light. Don't touch those arrows directly, Minister Dan reminded. The arrows whistled through the air, and Minister Dan and Ji Yufei bore the brunt of the attack. They did not touch the flying arrows, but used their movement skills to constantly dodge. Ji Yufei used the 8 desolation steps, and like a phantom, he dodged the densely packed arrows. The flying arrows brushed past his body, but not a single arrow hit him. Boom! 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 A series of explosions came from behind Ji Yufei and Minister Dan. Chu Ji roared in anger. His mind had already sunk into madness, and he did not dodge the flying arrows at all. The Sky Devil blade swept towards the flying arrows in front of him. However, as soon as the Sky Devil blade touched the flying arrows exploded. The powerful force produced by the exploding flying arrows caused Chu Ji's speed to immediately slow down. At this time, Ji Yufei and Minister Dan had already rushed to the city gate tower. However, the heavy city gate was already tightly shut, and countless flying arrows shot down from above. Whatever the flying arrows touched, they exploded. For a moment, the sound of a huge explosion resounded from below the city gate tower. The moment Ji Yufei rushed out from the ancient stone bridge, a boom, 5-colored 5-elemental chi immediately shot out from his body, and all the flying arrows that were shooting towards him were blocked by the 5-elemental chi. The exploding flying arrows released a powerful force, but it could not shake his protective chi. In an instant, Minister Dan had also recovered the supernatural power of the void controlling realm. A terrifying wave of supernatural power surged out from his body, and the power he emitted was like a mountain, making people have the urge to look up to him. Go! Minister Dan shouted, and directly wrapped Ji Yufei with his supernatural power, and shot up into the sky, wanting to fly over the city gate tower. The general on the city gate tower was almost scared to death, and he stared at the scene with his mouth agape. Under Minister Dan's power, the other soldiers were also extremely shocked and terrified. God! 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 The general muttered to himself, and suddenly collapsed on the city gate tower. What have I done? How dare I order an attack on a god? The soldiers guarding the northern mountain pass were all mortals, so how could they have seen such an untraceable flying technique of the god of immortals? Just as Minister Dan was about to fly over the northern mountain pass with Ji Yufei, an earth-shattering roar suddenly came from below the northern mountain pass. Then, the soldiers on the city gate tower saw a terrifying blood-red light soar up thousands of feet, and it slashed at the god in the sky. The blood-red light filled the sky, and an extremely terrifying and powerful aura spread out, causing the soldiers on the city gate tower to almost have a mental breakdown. Everyone felt a shiver from the depths of their souls, and some even wet their pants in fear. The blood-red light came at a very fast speed, and in just an instant, it had slashed behind Minister Dan and Ji Yufei. After escaping from the suppression of the ancient stone bridge, the power of the Sky Demon Blade had also recovered. Damn it! Minister Dan pushed Ji Yufei, and the two of them instantly flew to the sides. The 1,000-foot-long sword ray brushed past them, and they barely avoided the terrifying attack. The sword ray shot up into the sky, and no one knew how far it had gone before it gradually weakened and dissipated into the void. However, a murderous aura still enveloped the entire northern mountain pass. Ji Yufei screamed as he fell from the sky. He could not fly yet, and he did not want anyone to know about his secret of having an inner dimension. Therefore, he did not use his spatial energy to reduce the speed of his fall. Bang! Ji Yufei landed heavily on the roof of a house below, and with a loud bang, he smashed a large hole in the roof and fell into the house. A few soldiers who were hiding in the house rushed out of the house, and cursed as they fled in all directions, looking for another place to hide. Ji Yufei rushed out of the house, and was just in time to witness the shocking scene. Boom! With a loud bang, the entire gate tower exploded, and the soldiers on top of the gate tower were instantly turned into a bloody mist by the terrifying force. They did not even have the chance to scream before they were killed in an instant. A terrifying demonic shadow rushed into the pass from the exploded gate tower, and the entire northern mountain pass was immediately filled with a monstrous demonic aura. The heavens and the earth were plunged into darkness, and it was as if night had fallen in an instant. At this moment, everyone within a radius of 10 miles felt a boundless and terrifying aura. Everyone looked towards the direction of Northern Mountain Pass in unison, and they saw a monstrous demonic aura surging violently at the location of Northern Mountain Pass. The terrifying aura was coming from there. A few figures immediately rushed out from Northern Mountain City, which was 30 miles away. Some even soared into the sky and flew towards Northern Mountain Pass. The unusual movements at Northern Mountain Pass had alerted the powerhouses who were stationed in Northern Mountain City. The terrifying figure shrouded in demonic aura had 2 spots of blood-red light coldly scanning in all directions. Then, a blood-red blade gleam appeared, and the blood-red light soared thousands of feet into the sky, slashing towards a golden figure in the sky. The mystical yin demonic aura rushed out of Chu Ji's body like a burning black demonic flame, and his blood-red eyes emitted an extremely crazy divine light. Chu Ji's expression was extremely ferocious, and he looked like a ferocious demon that had rushed out from hell. The target of the blood-colored saber light was Minister Dan. Even though Chu Ji was in a frenzy, he could sense a powerful aura from Minister Dan. Subconsciously, Minister Dan became Chu Ji's target to kill. Swoosh! Minister Dan was like a golden shadow, and he suddenly transformed into a dozen illusory figures. He dodged the slash of the heavenly demon blade's 1,000-foot blade gleam, and charged towards Chu Ji. Rumble! The blood-red blade gleam struck the ground, and the 1,000-foot blade gleam directly split Northern Mountain Pass into 2. Houses continued to collapse, and dust rose high into the sky. The soldiers in Northern Mountain Pass cried and screamed as they fled in all directions. It was a chaotic scene. At this moment, everyone had broken down. They only had one thought in mind, and that was to escape from Northern Mountain Pass. Ji Yufei knew that a battle of this scale was not something he could intervene in. Moreover, if Minister Dan wanted to retreat, Chu Ji, who had fallen into a state of madness, would not be able to stop him. Since he could not help, Ji Yufei decisively rushed out of Northern Mountain Pass that was shrouded in demonic aura. Boom! Just as Ji Yufei rushed out of Northern Mountain Pass, a loud noise came from behind him. A vast wave of energy spread out, and the entire Northern Mountain Pass trembled, and houses continued to collapse. Chapter 322. Hee hee. I didn't think there would be something interesting to watch in this remote place. This is great. Suddenly, a crisp laughter that sounded like a silver bell was heard from afar. Ji Yufei looked towards the direction of the laughter and saw a graceful green silhouette gliding across the snow-covered forest. In the blink of an eye, she was near. The north was a bitterly cold land. Everything was covered in silver. Although it was not as barren as the far north demon region, it was still a world of ice and snow. The forest was covered in thick snow and there were crystal-clear icicles hanging from the trees. Ji Yufei felt that he could not see the woman's face clearly. It was as if there was a thin layer of mist or a thin layer of gauze that blocked his vision. It was obvious that the woman had used her mana to conceal her true appearance. However, the thing that attracted Ji Yufei's attention the most was the fist-sized purple beast crouching on the green-clothed lady's shoulder. It had long ears, sharp claws, and blood-colored eyes that were like agate. There was also a deep purple vertical scar between its brows. He felt like he had seen this beast somewhere before. The green-robed woman did not enter the Northern Mountain Pass. Instead, she stopped at the top of a big tree. As the wind blew, her clothes fluttered in the wind. The woman was like a fairy with an otherworldly aura. It was as if she could fly away with the wind at any time. Although he could not see the woman's face, Ji Yufei knew that she was definitely a beauty that could topple a city and could captivate even the birds and beasts. Suddenly, Ji Yufei remembered something and exclaimed, "Three-eyed mink." He remembered why the little beast crouching on the green-robed woman's shoulder looked so familiar. He could not help but be shocked. Back when he was on his way to the southern wilderness, he saw a green-robed woman. In order to capture the three-eyed mink, she did not hesitate to cover a part of the world with a fire net and destroy a part of the forest. Could this green-robed woman be the person from that day? "Hey, I didn't expect you to know about the three-eyed mink." The woman turned to look at Ji Yufei. Her tone was a little surprised. She then focused her attention on the northern mountain pass in front of them. In the eyes of the woman, Ji Yufei was covered in blood, his hair was disheveled, and his clothes were in tatters. He looked like a soldier who had just returned from the battlefield and was in an extremely sorry state. Perhaps the green-robed woman saw Ji Yufei as a general guarding the northern mountain pass. The first son of the demonic monarch of 6 paths, Chu Ji? How could it be him? The lady in green stared at the northern mountain pass that was filled with demonic aura and said in shock. She had already figured out the origins of the devils that were slaughtering madly in Beeling Pass. Demonic chi billowed in the northern mountain pass as the blood-colored saber gleam shot out from the pass in all directions. Nothing could stop it. Loud noises were heard as the houses in the northern mountain pass collapsed. A terrifying demonic aura spread out, startling the wild beasts in the forest and causing them to flee into the distance. The birds soared into the sky and flew into the distance. Amidst the demonic aura, a golden light flashed and a powerful wave that was not weaker than Chu Ji spread out. Minister Dan and Chu Ji were engaged in a fierce battle. Who is that? How could he fight against Chu Ji who has the Sky Devil saber and not be at a disadvantage? The green-robed woman seemed to be very knowledgeable. She could tell that there was an expert who was fighting against Chu Ji. Squeak squeak. Suddenly, the three-eyed purple mink that was crouching on the right shoulder of the green-robed woman stood up and squeaked excitedly as if something in front had attracted the little beast. "Hee hee. Do you want to play too?" The green-robed woman patted the little beast's head and said with a smile. Then you can go." The green-robed woman seemed to dote on the little beast. The little beast seemed to understand the green-robed woman's words and squeaked happily. It leaped down from the green-robed woman's shoulder and turned into a purple ray of light, charging into the northern mountain pass. The green-robed woman had no intention of making a move. She quietly stared at the surging demonic aura in front of her. At that moment, a whooshing sound came from the sky. With a piercing sound, a green divine rainbow streaked across the sky like a meteor, shooting down towards the northern mountain pass. "How dare you destroy the northern mountain pass? Aren't you afraid of stirring up a war between the righteous and the evil?" The newcomer swept away the layers of demonic aura and charged into the northern mountain pass. The expert from the northern mountain pass had arrived. The loud voice could be heard from tens of miles away. It shook the snow in the snow forest and caused Ji Yufei's blood to boil and his face flushed red. The peerless expert of the Imperial Void Realm was truly terrifying. His voice was like a bell that shook one's heart. The green-robed woman did not react. She seemed to have completely ignored the terrifying sound wave from the peerless expert. She stood calmly on the top of the tree. "Chu Ji, is that you?" A cry came from the northern mountain pass that was filled with demonic aura. The peerless expert who had just charged into the northern mountain pass seemed to be shocked. "Chu Ji, have you lost your mind?" The expert roared in anger. There was a flash of blood in the demonic aura. He seemed to be in great trouble. He really has lost his mind. "Let's work together to take him down." Minister Dan's voice was heard. Minister Dan of the Taishen sect. "All right, let's work together to take down this demon," the peerless expert said. Boom. A terrifying wave of energy suddenly burst out from the northern mountain pass. It was like a huge wave of energy that spread out. The gate that connected the northern mountain pass to the northern mountain pass collapsed and dust flew into the sky. The peerless expert attacked with all his might. The power was earth-shattering. The 10-feet-tall city wall was like snow under the scorching sun. It was instantly pushed down by the surging energy storm. Dozens of figures rushed out from the northern mountain pass. The people who rushed out were the soldiers of the Yang Kingdom who were guarding the northern mountain pass. Most of them were affected by the battle between Minister Dan and Chu Ji. There were countless casualties, and less than 50 of them rushed out from the northern mountain pass. However, the dozens of soldiers who rushed out of the northern mountain pass were not able to escape their tragic fate. Wisps of black qi seeped out from their bodies. It was the Xianyin demonic qi. The eyes of the soldiers turned blood red. Demonic tattoos appeared on their faces and hands. It was as if there were thousands of little insects crawling under their skin. It was extremely terrifying. Hee roar. The soldiers who rushed out of the northern mountain pass screamed in pain as if they had gone mad. Their hands constantly scratched and tore at their bodies. Their heads and scalps were torn off, and their flesh was a bloody mess. Then, the dozens of soldiers began to fight in a frenzy on the snowy ground. These soldiers were just ordinary people. It was difficult for them to resist the invasion of the demonic aura. They had been demonized and lost their rationality. They had become demonic creatures that did not know pain or life or death. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Rest in peace. The green-robed girl flicked her hands and dozens of sparks flew out from her hands. They crossed a distance of hundreds of feet and accurately hit the bodies of the dozens of demonic soldiers. Boom! Almost at the same time, the dozens of soldiers were engulfed in flames. In the blink of an eye, the dozens of soldiers were turned into ashes. This. Ji Yufei looked at the scene in shock. He was extremely shocked. What kind of fire was this? It was so domineering that it burned a person into ashes in an instant. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Just as the green-robed girl killed the dozens of demonic soldiers, 5 or 6 figures rushed over from the main road to northern mountain city. A powerful aura immediately spread over. Ji Yufei felt that none of these people's cultivation was lower than his. Where did so many masters come from? Ji Yufei could not help but be shocked. He did not know that northern mountain city guarded the main road from the northern demonic region to the central plains. There were often masters standing guard in the city to deal with sudden incidents. Northern Mountain Pass and Northern Mountain City were the first checkpoints from the northern demonic region to the central plains. Not only did the Northern Yang Empire pay attention to them, but the cultivation world also paid close attention to them. Not only did they have to guard against demonic creatures from the northern demonic region, they also had to prevent large numbers of demonic cultivators from the northern demonic region from entering the central plains. The northern mountain city was filled with spies from various righteous forces. If anything happened at Northern Mountain Pass, the entire cultivation world would know immediately. The 5 or 6 figures that rushed over from the main road stopped in the distance. Everyone stared in shock at Northern Mountain Pass that was shrouded in demonic aura. No one dared to move forward. The battle within Northern Mountain Pass was no longer something they could interfere with. People continued to rush over from the main road. Soon, more than 10 people gathered in the snow forest. None of these people were weak. They were at least in the transcending mortality stage. Ji Yufei felt that some of them had even reached the 8th or 9th heaven of the transcending mortality stage. These people were definitely the strongest among the transcending mortality stage cultivators. With Ji Yufei's current strength, he could fight against a cultivator at the 7th heaven of the transcending mortality stage. If he encountered a cultivator at the 7th or 8th heaven of the transcending mortality stage, he would have to retreat. The cultivators from Northern Mountain City also noticed Ji Yufei and the green-robed lady standing on top of the tree. However, no one went forward to speak to Ji Yufei and the green-robed lady. Everyone's attention was attracted by the overwhelming demonic aura in front of them. It's the three-eyed divine mink. It's an evolved spiritual beast. Suddenly, an exclamation came from Northern Mountain Pass. Then, a purple figure rushed out from the demonic aura. Where do you think you're going? A loud shout came from the demonic aura. A giant green hand broke through the layers of demonic aura and grabbed at the purple figure. The green-robed lady scoffed and disappeared from the top of the tree. In the next moment, she reappeared hundreds of feet away. The purple figure that rushed out from the demonic aura landed on her shoulder. Then, the green-robed lady stretched out her right hand and pushed forward. Boom! A loud sound was heard. The giant green hand instantly collapsed. A terrifying energy wave swept out and swept up the thick snow on the ground. Snowflakes danced in the air. The green-robed lady calmly retreated. It was not that she was no match for the attack, but that she retreated on her own accord. Chapter 323. The Northern Mountain Pass was now in ruins. 3 peerless cultivators of the Empyrean realm were fighting with their lives on the line. The terrifying energy ripples from their battle shook heaven and earth. The overwhelming demonic chi enveloped the world, and the extremely cruel and evil demonic chi made people tremble with fear. Aside from the mysterious green-robed lady who fought against the peerless cultivator from the Northern Mountain Pass, no one else could see what was going on in the Northern Mountain Pass. Chu Ji, who had fallen into a state of madness, seemed to have turned into a terrifying demon. He slashed at the 2 peerless cultivators with his saber. Thousands of feet-long saber rays shot out from the demonic aura from time to time. The saber aura from the heavenly demon saber was extremely terrifying. Everywhere the saber ray passed through, not only did it devour all the spiritual chi in the surroundings, but it also severed all vitality, causing the trees to wither. The cultivators who were watching the battle from hundreds of feet away were forced to retreat. Only the mysterious green-robed lady seemed unafraid of the saber aura from the heavenly demon saber. She stood at the top of the tree and watched the battle unfold before her. The 3-eyed divine mink crouched on the lady's right shoulder. If it were not for the lady's timely intervention, the little beast would have been captured by the peerless cultivator. A demon? Jiyu Fei was shocked that the peerless cultivator had called out the mysterious woman's identity. Moreover, the mysterious woman did not deny it. The other cultivators who rushed over from the Northern Mountain Pass were also shocked when they heard the peerless cultivator's words. After all, the lady in green was in the form of a human. If she was truly a demon, then she was a demon that could shapeshift. A demon that could shapeshift would have a terrifying cultivation base. She would at least be at the Empyrean realm of the human race. Furthermore, due to the innate advantage of the demon race, they were usually much more powerful than human cultivators of the same level. The mysterious green-robed lady definitely had the strength to intervene in the battle. However, she had no intention of doing so. It was as if she was purely watching the show and had nothing to do with it. Jiyu Fei found it difficult to defend against the terrifying energy waves that were constantly spilling out from the front. He kept retreating until he was half a mile away from the battle before he felt a little better. The pressure from the peerless cultivator was truly shocking. It was as if a 1,000-pound boulder was pressing down on his heart. It was extremely heavy and oppressive. Jiyu Fei did not join the cultivators from Beeling City. Instead, he stood alone in the snowy forest, paying close attention to the battle before him. After all, Minister Dan was fighting Chu Ji together with that peerless expert. Jiyu Fei couldn't leave by himself. More and more cultivators appeared in the snow forest. The Northern Mountain Pass was not far from Northern Mountain City. The cultivators in Northern Mountain City had already sensed the abnormality at the Northern Mountain Pass and were heading towards the Northern Mountain Pass. Jiyu Fei sensed several powerful auras appearing in the snowy forest. At first, he did not care, but soon, he felt that someone was watching him. The few experts who exuded powerful auras approached Jiyu Fei intentionally or unintentionally. There was one person on each side, and they were actually surrounding Jiyu Fei. Who are these people? Jiyu Fei's heart trembled. The 4 people who were slowly approaching him seemed to be no weaker than him. Jiyu Fei moved carefully in the snowy forest. He moved towards the person on the left who seemed to be the weakest. He had no chance of winning against 4 people alone. Everyone's attention was attracted by the battle before them. No one noticed the silent scene that was happening in the snowy forest. Swoosh! Jiyu Fei suddenly pushed off with both feet on the snowy ground and flew towards the person on the left. While he was in the air, his right hand had already pressed forward. Rumble! There was a violent tremor. Surging golden yuan qi surged out from Ji Yufei's right hand. The violent power shook the void. A large golden hand quickly appeared and pressed towards the person. The distance between the two was less than 300 feet. Ji Yufei pounced like a tiger pouncing on its prey. In an instant, he pounced more than 200 feet forward, and then when he was less than 4 feet away from the person, he directly struck out with his palm. Ji Yufei's movements were extremely fast. The other three didn't expect Ji Yufei to suddenly be in trouble and were stunned for a moment. By the time they regained their senses, Ji Yufei had suddenly launched a palm strike at the person on the left with the weakest cultivation. 1,000 blades and 10,000 swords. That person let out a soft shout. A dazzling golden light burst out from his body, like a sun had fallen into the snowy forest. His hands drew a mysterious trajectory in the void. A golden light spread out, like a golden wave, towards Ji Yufei's palm of light. Amidst the surging golden waves, tens of thousands of saber and sword shadows quickly condensed. Like tens of thousands of saber and sword shadows, they fiercely slashed out. Boom! With a loud bang, the endless golden swords and sabers collided with the palm of light. The aftershock spread in all directions, and the trees near the two of them were directly shattered into splinters that flew all over the sky. The thick snow on the ground was rolled up by the mighty waves of air, revealing the soil under the snow. 5 elements magical power. You are from the Beitang clan. Ji Yufei recognized the terrifying magical power of this person at a glance. He did not retreat, instead, he strode forward. He sent out another palm strike, and the man was pushed back by the violent force of the palm strike. His mask was wet, and it was obvious that he had suffered internal injuries. These 4 masters did not show their true faces. Their faces were covered with black scarves. Ji Yufei could already see that among these 4 people, there was a graceful young woman dressed in white. Just as Ji Yufei was about to charge out of the encirclement after forcing that person back with an absolute advantage, the masked woman moved. Swoosh! She directly disappeared on the spot. The next moment, she directly crossed a distance of tens of feet and appeared behind Ji Yufei. Without saying a word, the veiled woman waved her hand and a dazzling golden blade of light shot out. It was like a golden heavenly blade that slashed down on Ji Yufei Li. The terrifying power of the divine ability seemed to draw in the power of the metal element between heaven and earth. The nearby spiritual qi seemed to be sucked dry in an instant and gathered on the golden blade of light. Roar! Ji Yufei shouted angrily. A powerful force suddenly burst out from his body. He used the 8 desolation steps. It was as if he had teleported. In an instant, he rushed forward more than 300 feet. Bang! The unparalleled golden light blade fiercely struck the ground. The snow mixed with the soil was sent flying, and a 10 feet deep trench appeared on the ground. At this moment, the other cultivators in the snow forest had already sensed that something was wrong. However, no one cared about the battle between Ji Yufei and the 4 people. Battles between cultivators were too common. However, a battle between peerless masters was rare. No one would miss it. It was very beneficial for cultivators in the transcending mortality realm to be able to watch a battle of this level. They might be able to comprehend many things from it, which would be very helpful for their cultivation to have a breakthrough, especially for cultivators in the 8th or 9th heaven of the transcending mortality realm. Just as Ji Yufei dodged the masked woman's slash, a tall man who was approaching Ji Yufei from the right took out a black bow that was surrounded by a black aura. It was a ghost bow that was refined with black bones. The entire bow looked like a spine. The black aura was not devil chi, but the eerie and terrifying occult ghost chi. The tall man in black pulled the bowstring of the black bone ghost bow in his hand. The pitch-black ghost bow glowed with a faint black light. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth surged towards the ghost bow. A faint black arrow appeared as the ghost bow was pulled. A powerful wave of energy spread in all directions with the tall man as the center. The tall man was immediately surrounded by a dense ghost chi, as if he had turned into the 9 serenities of hell. Ji Yufei felt the danger. All the pores on his body opened. He did not dare to stay any longer. He rushed into the depths of the snow forest as if he had turned into a phantom. At this moment, The tall man had already pulled the ghost bow and shot an arrow at Ji Yufei's back. The faint arrow shadow was extremely fast. It caught up to Ji Yufei in an instant. A gloomy aura enveloped Ji Yufei. The ghost arrow, which was surrounded by black aura and seemed to be possessed by thousands of evil spirits, had already shot behind Ji Yufei. Ji Yufei was shocked. He tried his best to dodge to the side, but he only managed to avoid the vital parts of his back. Ji Yufei only felt a chill on his shoulder. Then, he felt an extremely cold and evil energy shooting into his body. The black arrow did not penetrate Ji Yufei's shoulder. Instead, it sank into Ji Yufei's shoulder and entered Ji Yufei's body. In an instant, Ji Yufei's skin turned purplish-black. Wisps of black aura seeped out of his pores. Then, faint and illusory ghost shadows appeared on Ji Yufei's body. He seemed to be haunted by thousands of evil spirits. He looked extremely ferocious and terrifying. Roar! Ji Yufei howled in pain. He felt as if there were countless ants gnawing at his internal organs and flesh. It also felt as if there were countless evil spirits tearing at his body. He was in extreme pain. The profound yin ghost qi almost froze Ji Yufei's blood. Ji Yufei's vision darkened. He staggered forward for dozens of feet and almost fainted. When the four masked men saw that Ji Yufei had been hit by that extremely evil arrow, they did not seem to be in a hurry to attack. Instead, they slowly surrounded Ji Yufei. No one who has been hit by the 9 nether blackbone bow's 9 nether blackbone arrow can survive, the tall man said as he held the ghost bow that was surrounded by black aura. What? Ji Yufei roared. Suddenly, a powerful sword qi exploded from his body. 2 rays of purple light shot out from his eyes like 2 sharp swords. The ghost qi all over his body was suppressed by the sword qi. Not good. The tall man was shocked. He retreated and drew his bow. He wanted to shoot another arrow and kill Ji Yufei once and for all. However, Ji Yufei rushed into the depths of the snow forest like a madman. Chapter 324. Inside the northern mountain pass, the demonic qi that shrouded the entire northern mountain pass had mostly dissipated. With Minister Dan and the peerless expert joining forces, they gradually gained the upper hand. However, even though Chu Ji was in a frenzy, the sky demon saber in his hand was still extremely powerful. The saber radiance soared thousands of feet into the sky, as if it was going to split the heavens and the earth. Nothing could stop it, and it was still difficult to determine the victor. No one was interested in the battle between Ji Yufei and the 4 mysterious men. Compared to the battle between the peerless experts, Ji Yufei's battle was child's play. No one interfered with the battle between Ji Yufei and the 4 mysterious men. Ji Yufei was hit by the arrow shot by the tall man with the demonic bow. The ghostly arrow sank into Ji Yufei's body, as if countless evil spirits had followed the arrow and rushed into Ji Yufei's body. It made Ji Yufei feel as if thousands of evil spirits were chewing on his flesh and blood, destroying his consciousness. The pain almost made Ji Yufei faint. However, he gritted his teeth and endured it. He could not faint. If he did, the 4 people behind him would definitely catch up to him and his life would be in danger. At the crucial moment, the mysterious essence of the divine weapon that Ji Yufei had refined into his qi and blood seemed to be stimulated by the Xianyin ghost qi that rushed into Ji Yufei's body. It automatically released a powerful sword qi that protected Ji Yufei's organs and consciousness, allowing him to temporarily stay awake. Ji Yufei unleashed the extreme 8 steps with all his might and rushed forward in the snow forest. He had no idea where he was going, nor did he know how long he had been running in the snow forest. He no longer cared about anything in the outside world. There was only one thought in his mind, and that was not to die. If he died, there would be nothing left. As long as he did not die, anything could live. The sun gradually set in the west. Ji Yufei ran for his life in the snow forest for 6 to 10 hours, from noon to dusk, and from dusk until the stars appeared in the sky. 8th step extreme. Among the cultivators of the same level, there was absolutely no one who could match him. The 4 mysterious experts behind him were left far behind by Ji Yufei. Under the erosion of the Xianyin ghost qi, Ji Yufei's consciousness gradually began to become drowsy. He did not even know that he had rushed into a jungle. Finally, when he was exhausted, he collapsed in a patch of grass. Preposterous. That kid was struck by the netherworld blackbone arrow, so how could he still run for so long? Within the snow forest, 4 figures were following the tracks that Jiu Fei had left on the snow. They were moving at an incomparably fast speed on top of the thick snow. Boss Dongfang, your 9 nether blackbone bow can't be an imitation, right? The 4 of them stopped under a big tree. The masked woman in white glanced at the bone bow in the hands of the tall man and said indifferently, "Beitang Yu, do you want me to shoot an arrow at you?" The tall man said unhappily. As he spoke, he actually pulled the string of the blackbone bow in his hands. It was as if a ferocious spirit was vaguely roaring within it. "All right, can the 2 of you work together peacefully for once? I don't care if you kill that kid or not. However, if that kid doesn't die, you won't have a good life," a middle-aged man in purple with a black saber on his back said impatiently. He was also masked and had a strand of silver on his forehead. The tall man that the masked woman called Boss Dongfang coldly snorted and put down the blackbone bow in his hands. The tracks that Jiu Fei had left behind on the snowy ground were very obvious. Therefore, these people were not in a hurry to chase after him. This was because Jiu Fei had been struck by the netherworld blackbone bow. Boss Dongfang was right. Ever since the netherworld blackbone bow had been refined by that powerful ghost cultivator, no one had been able to escape with their lives from the netherworld blackbone arrow. The netherworld blackbone bow was not very famous in the cultivation world of the Tenglong continent. However, in the ghost palace of Plentiful City, it was an extraordinary ghost cultivator magic tool. Legend has it that when the netherworld blackbone bow was refined, the powerful ghost cultivator did not hesitate to slaughter the people of an entire town. He extracted the souls of tens of thousands of people and smelted them into the ghost bow. Network, the souls of those people were smelted into the ghost bow. Not only did they never come back to life, they were also used to slaughter living beings day and night. Over time, the resentment, baleful energy, and death energy of the ghost bow gathered and became a murderous weapon. Only an expert at the 7th or 8th heaven of the transcending mortality realm could pull the bow and arrow. If it was an ordinary person or a cultivator at the awakening self realm, as long as they touched the blackbone bow, their soul would be instantly extracted by the blackbone bow and then devoured. The Dongfang clan used countless manpower and resources and paid a great price to obtain this netherworld blackbone bow. Let's continue. Before I see that brat's corpse, I will always feel uneasy, another middle-aged man with white hair said. As he spoke, he pulled off the black cloth covering his face. The middle-aged man who was hit by Jiu Fei's 2 palms and vomited blood was Beitang Yi, who had not been seen for a long time. That day outside the Dragon Emperor city of the southern wasteland, Jiu Fei fought with Beitang Ao and Beitang Yi. Although he was seriously injured, he also injured Beitang Yi, who was at the transcending mortality realm, with his martial arts battle skills. That battle could be said to be extremely dangerous and unbelievable. Jiu Fei, with his awakening self-realm cultivation base, had injured Beitang Yi, who was at the transcending mortality realm. There was a huge gap between the 2 of them. Everyone who paid attention to that battle thought that the Supreme Mystery Sect had produced a disciple with unlimited potential. They were already in the depths of the snow forest, far away from Beeling Pass. They could no longer sense the fluctuations of energy coming from Beeling Pass, so there were definitely no outsiders here. The other 3 mysterious experts also pulled off the masks covering their faces. The tall Dongfang clan's eldest brother was a rugged man. Beitang Yu was a beautiful woman with a cold expression. She seemed to be around 27 or 28 years old. As for the middle-aged man with a black saber on his back and a strand of silver hair floating in front of his forehead, his appearance was not outstanding. His face was a bit pale, as if he had not seen the sun for a long time. Age didn't mean anything. In the cultivation world, the most unreliable thing was a cultivator's appearance. Often, a young man with white teeth and red lips was an old monster who had cultivated for hundreds of years. Obviously, the Beitang clan and the Dongfang clan already knew that not only did Jiu Fei not die in the virtual sky world, but he had also come out. The 2 experts of the Beitang clan, the eldest brother, and the middle-aged man with the saber continued to follow the traces left by Jiu Fei. After walking for hundreds of miles, they noticed that the ice and snow around them gradually decreased. Vegetation began to appear on the ground, and some large stones could be seen everywhere on the snowy ground. The forest became lush. After chasing for more than 100 miles, the shadows of the ice and snow could no longer be seen. Beitang Yu and the others entered a dense forest where ferocious beasts could be seen everywhere. What's going on? Dongfang clan's eldest brother and the others became cautious. Something's wrong. Beitang Yu glanced around, her cold face revealing a solemn expression. She faintly felt that there seemed to be something wrong in this forest. The four of them gradually slowed down, and the traces left by Jiu Fei in the forest gradually decreased. If it weren't for the 9 nether blackbone bow in Dongfang clan's eldest brother's hand, which could sense the mysterious yin ghost aura in the air, they would have long lost the direction in which Jiu Fei escaped. We're not going south. There shouldn't be a forest here, the middle-aged man with the saber said in a deep voice. Everyone was shocked when they heard that. That's right. They weren't going south. The area thousands of miles north of the northern Yang Empire was a world of ice and snow. It was impossible for a forest to appear. They seemed to have broken into a mysterious place. The weather here was pleasant, and there was no ice and snow. Birds and beasts could be seen everywhere in the forest. It seemed to be an oasis full of vitality. Beitang Yu and the others, however, couldn't feel happy. They had entered an unknown area, and they had no idea what unknown dangers there were. Do we still want to chase? The middle-aged man with the saber said. Entering a forest that shouldn't have appeared for no reason made him feel a little uneasy. Of course. If he's dead, I want to see his corpse, Beitang Yi said with a resolute tone, glancing at the middle-aged man with the saber. If they didn't take advantage of this great opportunity to kill Jiu Fei, if Jiu Fei didn't die, then their Beitang clan would be out of luck. Dongfang clan also had a reason to kill Jiu Fei, so Dongfang clan's eldest brother also nodded. Only the higher-ups of Dongfang clan knew what happened in the virtual sky world. That brat must die. Dongfang clan's eldest brother was also one of the insiders. Hee. If you want to chase, I don't have any objections, but I can't accompany you, the middle-aged man with the saber suddenly said with a low chuckle. Dongfang clan's eldest brother and the others couldn't help but change their expressions. Dongfang clan's eldest brother said with a sullen expression, Old hey, what do you mean? I don't mean anything. If you want to kill that brat, it's your two clans' business. It's not worthwhile for me to offend the master of this place, the middle-aged man with the saber said coldly. The middle-aged man with the saber seemed to have realized something, but he was just an outsider. He wasn't stupid enough to take risks for Dongfang clan and Beitang clan. What? The master of this place? Dongfang clan's eldest brother and Beitang Yu couldn't help but be shocked. At this time, a crisp laughter came from the depths of the forest. In the dark night, it seemed so abrupt, and everyone was shocked. He's right. If you're tactful, you should leave immediately. The crisp and sweet-sounding voice rang out again. Judging from the voice, it seemed to be the voice of a young girl. We're looking for an injured friend. After we find him, we'll naturally leave, Beitang Yu said. Everyone immediately understood Beitang Yu's intention. That's right. We have no intention of offending the master of this place. Have you seen our friend? Dongfang clan's eldest brother said. Although he looked like a straightforward man, he was no less attentive than a woman. Chapter 325. Under the night sky, the northernmost city of northern Yang, Beiling City, was brightly lit. Cultivators were constantly entering and exiting the city gate. The atmosphere in Beiling City was oppressive. It was as if a storm was brewing, shrouding the entire city. Beiling City had not been so lively for many years. The battle during the day had attracted the attention of the entire cultivation world of the Tenglong continent. Cultivators who received the news gathered at Beiling City from all directions. The news of a demon coming out from the far north demonic zone had not only killed all the guards at Beiling Pass, but also completely destroyed Beiling Pass. The news of him fighting with two peerless experts had already spread throughout the city. At night, The inns and restaurants in Beeling City were bustling with activity. A large number of cultivators had rushed into Beeling City and almost all the inns in the city had been booked. Some of the big sects and forces even spent a lot of money and booked the entire inn. The happiest people in Beeling City were probably the innkeepers. It was easy to earn money from cultivators. After all, cultivators were pursuing the path of immortality. They did not care much about money. In the bustling eastern area of Beeling City, there was the largest, tallest, and best restaurant in the city. Every floor of the restaurant was fully occupied. Everyone was toasting and chatting about the past and present. The atmosphere was extremely lively. However, the most popular topic was the battle between the three peerless experts at Beeling Pass during the day. Elder Chen, have you heard? The demon from the other side of the abyss of immortals and demons is coming out. No way. I heard that the demons from the other side of the abyss of immortals and demons have an agreement with the cultivation world of the Central Plains. They are not allowed to come out at will. Would the demons from the far north demonic zone dare to break the agreement? Hehe, didn't you see? The number of cultivators in the city is several times more than during the day. It seems that all the major forces of the cultivation world of the Central Plains are here. I'm afraid they are going to start a war with the demons from the far north demonic zone. It can't be. The ones who spoke were two middle-aged cultivators in green robes. Most of the people outside the hall were cultivators. Although they spoke very softly, many people still heard them. Miss, is what they said true? If you bring this servant along during the day, this servant can also experience those so-called peerless expert. In the private room, a green-clothed woman was drinking by herself. Beside her stood a young maid. This little maid was wearing a light green dress. She looked very cute, especially her pair of black eyes, which were full of spirituality, like two shiny black gems. However, she did not seem to be human. She had a pair of long, furry ears. Those were the ears of a beast. She was a demon that could already transform. If others were to see that someone was actually able to order around a greater demon that had taken human form as a maidservant, it would surely cause them to be extremely dumbstruck and shocked. One must know that a demon that could take human form could already be called a great demon. This kind of great demon's strength was extremely terrifying, and it was sufficient to be mentioned in the same breath as the human peerless experts of the void-resisting realm. Cultivators of the royal void realm among the humans were peerless experts who could soar into the sky without the help of any external objects. They were people who stood at the pinnacle of the cultivation world's pyramid. If I were to bring you along, then the world would really be in chaos. The mysterious woman said. On her right shoulder was a fist-sized purple beast. It was the three-eyed sable. This three-eyed sable was currently holding a pigeon egg-sized, fiery red crystal in its claws and chewing on it. Crunch, crunch. The incomparably hard crystal was actually chewed off by the little beast in small bites and swallowed into its stomach. In just a short while, the pigeon egg-sized fiery red crystal was more than half eaten by the little beast. Unfortunately, this servant came a bit too late. The little maid said with disappointment. It's not too late. Something seems to have happened to that demon Chu Ji. He has fallen into madness and fled into the depths of the snow forest. If you want to find someone to fight with, you should still be able to find him, the green-clothed woman said indifferently. Network, really? Then I'm going. When the little maid heard this, her eyes immediately lit up. She seemed to be extremely excited. Then, the space distorted and the little maid disappeared from the private room. This little girl's ability to control the void is becoming more and more proficient. It doesn't seem to be a bad thing to let her play with those experts. The green-clothed woman said. Even in the private room, her face was still a blur. She still used her magic power to conceal her true appearance. At this time, she suddenly put down the wine jug in her hand. The faint conversation in the private room next door had attracted her attention. In the private room next door, someone had used a small spell to block out sound. However, this small spell was completely useless against the green-clothed woman. As long as she wanted to, she would definitely be able to hear everyone in the private room. Why haven't Uncle and the others returned yet? Could it be that even the four of them couldn't kill that brat Jiu Fei? A voice sounded from the private room next door. Brother, don't worry. With Uncle and the others here, even if that brat has 3 heads and 6 arms, it will be difficult for him to escape with his life. Another voice sounded, as if comforting the person who had just spoken. The green-clothed woman could hear that although the tone of the second person was calm, it was also slightly nervous. What's going on with you two brothers? My aunt is the person in my Beitang clan who has the highest hope of breaking through to the void-controlling realm in the past 100 years. With her cultivation, could it be that she's still able to let that kid escape? Another person spoke out. Beitang Ao, you should know that if that person doesn't die, our 2 families won't have a good life. The first person who spoke seemed to be a little displeased with the other person's disapproval. Hehe, Dongfang Chen, you 2 brothers seem to have formed an irreconcilable enmity with that brat. When he comes back, I'm afraid the first thing he will do is to settle the score with you. It's not my turn yet. Beitang Ao said with a sneer. If it wasn't for the Dongfang brothers adding fuel to the fire, in fact, the enmity between Beitang Ao and his nephew and Jiu Fei was not irreconcilable, and it would not have become so irreconcilable. The 3 young cultivators in the private room next door were the Dongfang brothers and Beitang Ao. What do you mean by that? Dongfang Chen said in a deep voice. His tone was frighteningly cold. He seemed to have been angered by Beitang Ao's words. All right, all of you talk less. Right now, we should unite and solve this big problem in front of us. Dongfang Long advised. Humph. Beitang Ao sneered and no longer spoke. You. Dongfang Chen was furious. This Beitang Ao was looking down on others too much. Everyone's strength was about the same, but Beitang Ao was as arrogant as his name suggested. This made Dongfang Chen very unhappy. Brother. Dongfang Long said again. I know. I won't lower myself to the same level as some people. Dongfang Chen said. The people in the private room next door seemed to be very unhappy. Everyone was silent. After a while, the 3 young cultivators left the restaurant on bad terms. The human world is really complicated. You and I are deceiving each other. It's not like us demon race, where everything is based on strength. It's much simpler. The green-robed woman reached out her hand and touched the small head of the purple martin on her shoulder and lightly said. At this time, the 3-eyed martin had already chewed all the fiery red crystal in its claws. Its eyes were half closed, and it leaned comfortably on the neck of the green-robed woman. It was certainly not a coincidence that the Dongfang brothers and Beitang Ao came to Beiling City. It could even be said that they had been preparing for this assassination for several months. It turned out that half a year ago, the head of Taishen sect, Daoist Shentian, and several elders of the sect, who had long been indifferent to worldly affairs, used the primordial spirit lamp left by Jiu Fei as a guide. They used the 3 realms 6-path soul-searching technique and learned that not only was Jiu Fei not trapped in the virtual sky world, but he had also come out. In the past 2 or 3 years, Jiu Fei's primordial spirit lamp had not been extinguished, which had become a worry for Dongfang Chen. If he hadn't stopped them in the space passage, Jiu Fei would not have been trapped in the virtual sky world. As long as Jiu Fei's primordial spirit lamp was not extinguished, he could not have a moment of peace. Among his fellow disciples, eldest senior brother Li Lingfeng and the head's disciple Ziyu, as well as some disciples from other branches who were originally inferior to him, had already broken through the shackles of the self-awakening realm, successfully condensed their core of the way, and broke through to the transcending mortality realm. Dongfang Chen, on the other hand, was restless. It was difficult for him to devote all his attention to cultivation, and it was difficult for his cultivation to advance. In the past 2 or 3 years, he had watched his fellow disciples successfully reach the core formation realm, but he himself was blocked at the last hurdle of the self-awakening realm. This made Dongfang Chen very ashamed. If Jiu Fei did not die, his worry would not go away. His cultivation would probably always be shackled at the self-awakening realm, unable to advance even an inch. When he learned that Daoist Shentian had sent Dan Chengzi with the primordial spirit lamp to go down the mountain to find Jiu Fei, Dongfang Chen immediately took action. He absolutely could not let Jiu Fei return to Taishen sect. If Jiyu Fei returned to Taishen sect alive, he would die without a burial place. The crime of murdering a fellow disciple was enough for him to pay with his own life, and it would also bring shame to the Dongfang family. This kind of thing absolutely could not happen. That was how the 4 mysterious experts had ambushed Jiyu Fei and killed him outside Beeling Pass. However, the 4 experts of the older generation were now in big trouble. In order to chase after Jiyu Fei, they inadvertently broke into a jungle that was impossible to appear in the snow-covered northern region. Ask the owner of this place to come out and talk. Beitang Yu's eyes shone brightly, sweeping in all directions, but she could not find any trace of the mysterious girl in the forest. I know where the friend you are looking for is. In the forest, it suddenly became incomparably quiet. Other than the voices of the crowd, there was no other sound. Thank you so much, Boss Dongfang said. They didn't expect things to be so simple. But the mysterious girl in the forest seemed to be a little hesitant. When Boss Dongfang and the others heard this, their hearts jumped. Beitang Yu quickly said, But what? But just now, I seemed to hear you saying that you wanted to kill the friend you were talking about. I am very curious, since it is your friend, why do you want to kill him? The mysterious girl's clear voice sounded in the forest. Chapter 326. You want to deceive me? I'm not that easy to deceive. In the darkness of the night, the girl's clear and melodious voice resounded from within the forest. She seemed to be angry. Please don't misunderstand, Dongfang first brother hastily said. At the same time, he signaled to the 3 people standing beside him with his eyes. However, Beitang Yu and the others shook their heads. It was difficult for them to detect the location of the mysterious girl in the forest. The mysterious girl's voice seemed to come from all directions. It was erratic, but it was clearly transmitted to the 4 people's ears. It was as if she was speaking right next to their ears. This was obviously a profound sound technique. The mysterious girl didn't want Dongfang first brother and the others to know where she was. There was no doubt that she was secretly watching Beitang Yu and the others' every move. I didn't misunderstand. The bow in your hand is enough to explain everything, the girl said. I don't welcome you here. You should leave quickly, or else what? Beitang Yu coldly said. She was a proud person and couldn't tolerate others threatening her. Hand over that boy and we will naturally leave. Dongfang first brother couldn't help but tighten his grip on the 9 secret black bone bow. He vigilantly observed the surrounding movements. The Beitang and Dongfang families didn't want to leave because this matter involved too many people. If they didn't handle it well, it would bring great trouble to their families. They couldn't feel at ease until they saw Jiyu Fei's corpse. Beitang Yu and the others were also on guard. The middle-aged man with the black saber on his back had already stretched his right hand to his back and grasped the hilt of the black saber. He could unsheath the saber at any time. Very good. Since you don't want to leave, then you can play with my pet. As soon as the girl finished speaking, a whistling sound resounded in the forest. This whistling sound seemed to follow a certain rhythm. It was sharp, but not ear-piercing. Listening to it gave people a comfortable feeling. Roar, roar. As the whistle rang out, a deafening roar immediately rang out in the originally quiet forest. The roar was so close that it sounded like it was about to explode. An intense baleful aura suddenly erupted from all directions, sweeping towards Beitang Yu and the others. They seemed to have been surrounded by countless ferocious beasts. Sensing the aura of the ferocious beast that suddenly appeared, everyone's expression changed greatly, and they were extremely shocked. They were unable to understand how the young woman in the dark was able to do all this. Why was she able to hide so many fierce beasts in the nearby forest, but they couldn't sense any of them at all? This seemed to be an impossible thing. The surrounding beasts seemed to have appeared out of thin air. Pang! A golden light suddenly shot out from the forest in front of them. A giant golden wolf with wings on its back rushed out. The wolf's body was about 2 jong long and nearly 1 jong tall. Its entire body was flashing with a golden light, and a pair of golden wings that were about 4 to 5 jong long spread out, stirring up gusts of wind. The golden fur flickered with a sparkling luster, as if it was cast out of gold. A bizarre energy fluctuation flowed on it, and a terrifying ferocious might spread out from the giant wolf's body. After the golden divine wolf rushed out, its pair of ferocious and flickering bloody eyes never left Beitang Yu and the others. Danger shrouded them. Beitang Yi sneered, then he took a step forward and directly threw a punch forward. A golden spiritual light surged out from his fist and rushed towards the golden divine wolf. At the moment when Beitang Ao threw his punch, the grass and trees beside him were instantly crushed by the powerful force. Although everyone was unwilling to fight with the mysterious young woman who had not shown herself since the beginning, the current situation didn't allow them to do nothing. Awoo! The golden divine wolf let out a long howl towards the sky, then it turned into a golden light and soared into the sky, avoiding Beitang Yi's golden fist. The forest below was destroyed in an instant, and branches and leaves fluttered in the air. The golden divine wolf in the sky opened its mouth and fiercely spouted a dazzling golden light towards Beitang Yi below. The golden light emitted a powerful energy fluctuation. When Boss Dongfang and the others saw this, they were immediately startled. Quickly disperse. Swish, swish, swish. Boss Dongfang, Beitang Yu, and the middle-aged man with a blade on his back simultaneously rushed to the side. Roar! Beitang Yi roared in anger. He didn't dodge, instead, he took a step forward and threw his fists upwards to meet the golden light that was bombarding down from the sky. Boundless energy fluctuations were emitted from Beitang Yi's two fists. Using the 5 elemental divine ability, he aroused the power of the metal element among the 5 elements. The power of the metal element that was drifting in the world rapidly converged towards Beitang Yi's fists. Beitang Yi's fists seemed to have turned into 2 dazzling golden suns, illuminating the heaven and earth. The surrounding forest was unceasingly smashed by the mighty and terrifying energy. Boom! With a loud sound, a dazzling golden light burst out from the forest. The forest shook violently, and a wave of energy swept out from the center where the 2 terrifying energies collided. The powerful energy fluctuation wreaked havoc in the forest, and a large area of forest was instantly destroyed. Leaves fluttered in the air, and wood chips filled the sky. Under the cover of the burst of golden light, Beitang Yu and the others, who were a step ahead to dodge, saw the terrifying figures in the nearby forest. However, the nearby vicious beasts didn't seem to have any intention to attack them. The young woman in the dark was controlling the forest. This wasn't good. The initiative was completely in the hands of the mysterious young woman in the dark. Rumble. The ground under Beitang Yi's feet shook violently. The soil cracked and collapsed downwards, and a huge pit appeared in the forest. The golden divine wolf was blasted into the sky. Everyone be careful! Dongfang Big Brother shouted loudly. At the same time, a formidable magical power fluctuation gushed out from his body, and an ancient bronze battle armor appeared on his body. Hand over that person, I don't want to hurt you. Dongfang Big Brother shouted in a deep voice. He knew that the mysterious young woman in the dark was watching their every move. The feeling of being spied on in the dark was very bad. Boasting shamelessly, do you think that you can hurt me just because you have that ghastly big bow in your hand? The young woman's voice resounded again, and her words were filled with disdain. Awoo! At this time, a world-shaking wolf howl resounded from the sky. A terrifying energy fluctuation came down from the sky, shaking the heaven and earth. The golden divine wolf seemed to be an ominous beast of metal element, and it could manipulate the power of metal element. The huge divine wolf was emitting a dazzling golden light. The divine wolf turned into a golden rainbow and pounced towards Beitang Yi, who had just walked out of the big pit. Even Beitang Yu and the other experts were startled by its fiendish aura. This divine wolf wasn't simple. If it hadn't torn apart thousands of living beings, it wouldn't have been able to form such a fiendish aura. At this time, Dongfang Big Brother, who was standing on the top of the tree, pulled the 9 nether blackbone bow in his hand. Black mist curled up around it, and endless profound yin ghost energy erupted from the blackbone bow. As the 9 nether blackbone bow was gradually pulled, the nearby spiritual energy began to crazily converge towards the 9 nether blackbone bow, and it was quickly transformed into profound yin ghost energy. The spiritual energy here, at this time, everyone felt that the spiritual energy in this part of the forest seemed to be denser compared to other places. The spiritual energy converging towards the 9 nether blackbone bow had condensed into a visible spiritual energy flow. A forest had appeared in the world of ice and snow in the north, and the nearby spiritual energy was so dense. Could it be that a spiritual vein was being nurtured under the ground here? Endless spiritual energy converged towards the 9 nether blackbone bow, and was transformed into endless profound yin ghost energy. A black arrow condensed on the bowstring. Black mist lingered around Dongfang Big Brother's body, and it seemed as if there were thousands of ghosts and evil spirits faintly appearing. The ghostly shadows collided, and the entire 9 nether blackbone bow emitted a jet-black radiance. The pitch-black bone body emitted a frightening fluctuation that caused one's heart to palpitate. At this time, Beitang Yi's loud shout came from the side. The golden divine wolf had already descended from the sky like a golden meteor, and fiercely pounced towards Beitang Yi. Die! Beitang Yi threw a wild punch towards the golden divine wolf that was pouncing down from the sky. The wind was vast and mighty, and the golden radiance was like a wave that soared into the sky. The imposing manner was vigorous and unstoppable. The golden divine wolf that was pouncing down fiercely flapped its wings forward. Streaks of sharp golden radiance immediately shot out, and collided with Beitang Yi's vast fist energy with a loud rumble. A ball of golden radiance like the scorching sun burst out in the sky, and illuminated the entire mountain forest in a golden color. Beitang Yi's feet fiercely stomped on the ground, and at the same time, he shattered the ground. His figure transformed into a streak of golden light, and directly pounced towards the golden divine wolf that was flying backwards in the sky. His right arm was like a heavenly blade, and a several-meter-long golden radiance swept across the sky diagonally towards the golden divine wolf. Awoo! The golden divine wolf let out a long howl, and dodged the several-meter-long golden radiance with lightning speed. A pair of golden and dazzling claws fiercely clawed towards Beitang Yi's chest. Beitang Yi didn't dodge, and directly chopped towards the wolf's head with a knife hand. Screech! The golden divine wolf's sharp claws instantly tore the clothes in front of Beitang Yi's chest to shreds, and Beitang Yi's knife hand also blasted on the wolf's head without any fuss, and actually emitted the sound of metal colliding. Beitang Yi only felt that his knife hand had chopped on a piece of godly steel, and was unable to cause any substantial damage to the golden divine wolf. The golden divine wolf's claw didn't injure Beitang Yi at all. The golden divine wolf and Beitang Yi both flew backwards. Golden wolf and Beitang Yi flew backwards. Beitang Yi didn't have the ability to fly, so he slowly descended from the sky. That golden divine wolf was very extraordinary, and it seemed to be a mutated species. It was actually able to fight endlessly with a transcending mortality realm expert, and it didn't even fall into a disadvantageous position. What made Beitang Yi, Boss Dongfang, and the others feel a chill in their hearts was that there seemed to be a lot of vicious beasts like the golden divine wolf in the surroundings. If those vicious beasts in the vicinity were to swarm them together, Boss Dongfang and the others could only escape. Su. Boss Dongfang shot an arrow, but he didn't shoot in a certain direction. Instead, the ghost arrow, which was shrouded in black energy, soared into the sky. At this moment, a purple figure appeared beside a figure that was lying in the grass a few hundred meters away from Beitang Yi and the others. Chapter 327. Under the moonlit night, in the forest, a golden beast silhouette was fighting against Beitang Yi. The winged golden divine wolf was incomparably valiant. Its body, which seemed to be cast from gold, was emitting waves of incomparably fierce baleful aura. The golden battle wolf could also control the power of metal between heaven and earth. Its physical body was extremely powerful, and as it constantly bombarded Beitang Yi, a large area of the forest was constantly being destroyed by the powerful explosion. The golden light illuminated the heaven and earth. Beitang Yi and the middle-aged man with a black saber on his back were standing on top of a tree. They nervously swept their eyes over their surroundings. The shadows of the beasts in the forest were emitting powerful fluctuations, which made them feel uneasy. The whistle only rang for a while before it stopped. The shadows of the beasts in the nearby forest didn't attack Beitang Yi and the others, as if they were waiting for an order. At this time, the tall and big boss Dongfang had already pulled open the 9 nether blackbone bow. The spiritual chi in the surroundings was vast and mighty, unceasingly converging towards the man and the bow standing on top of the tree. The spiritual chi here seemed to be very dense. The spiritual chi that was converging towards the man and the bow had even formed a visible spiritual chi flow. When the endless spiritual chi converged on the 9 nether blackbone bow, it was instantly transformed into profound yin ghost chi. Around Boss Dongfang's body, ghost chi lingered, gloomy and terrifying, as if he had turned into a ghost domain. The endless profound yin ghost chi condensed into a ghost arrow with black chi lingering around it. Boss Dongfang let go of the arrow. Whoosh! The ghost arrow soared into the sky, emitting a dreadful whistling sound like the wailing of ghosts. It flew towards the southeast corner, leaving behind a black shadow in the void. Although Boss Dongfang didn't know the exact location of the girl in the dark, the profound yin ghost arrow was able to sense the ghost chi on Ji Yufei's body. Boss Dongfang didn't want to make a move against the mysterious girl in the dark. His arrow wasn't used to deal with the mysterious girl, but to kill Ji Yufei. A purple figure appeared next to Ji Yufei, who had fainted in the grass when eldest brother Dongfang shot the arrow. Just then, a sharp, ear-piercing sound that sounded like the howls of thousands of ferocious spirits rang out from the sky. What is that? The purple figure hurriedly looked in the direction of the voice. The moonlight shone on this person's face. Her skin was creamy white, her eyes were like autumn water, her nose was straight, and her lips were red and moist. This was a young girl dressed in purple, so beautiful that it was suffocating. She was slender and elegant, her dress swaying gently in the night wind, and 2 purple hair ribbons hanging down her back. She was like a fairy from the 9 heavens who had descended to the mortal world. A trace of astonishment flashed in her limpid eyes. She saw an arrow wrapped in black chi flying towards the young girl. Humph! Those people are quite capable to be able to detect my position. A crafty smile appeared on the young girl's beautiful face. Actually, the purple-robed girl did not know that Boss Dongfang's arrow's target was not her. Ji Yufei's life was not fated to end. If the purple-robed girl had not been by his side, he would not have been able to avoid Boss Dongfang's profound yin ghost arrow in his unconscious state. Even a peerless cultivator of the Imperial Void Realm would not be able to withstand 2 arrows in a row. The profound yin ghost arrow was extremely fast. In an instant, it had flown close to the young girl. An eerie and terrifying aura rushed towards them, blowing the young girl's beautiful hair like a waterfall. The purple-clothed girl pointed a finger and a golden light immediately shot out from her slender jade-like finger. Bang! A muffled sound rang out and the golden light instantly collided with the profound yin ghost arrow that was shot out. The profound yin ghost arrow exploded in an instant. The terrifying profound yin ghost chi, in an instant, condensed into thousands of faint and illusory arrow silhouettes and shot towards the purple-robed girl and Ji Yufei. One arrow silhouette had split into thousands of arrow silhouettes. This Boss Dongfang was quite impressive. The arrows that he had shot were not simply energy arrows that contained powerful profound yin ghost chi. Without a doubt, this arrow had been infused with his arrow will. Damn it! The purple-robed girl frowned and a trace of displeasure flashed across her face. Then, she formed a seal with her hand and a large green net flew out from her body. It instantly unfolded and wrapped upwards. The large net shrouded the heavens and the earth and emitted a powerful energy fluctuation. Rays of dark green light shot out from the net. The thousands of profound yin ghost arrows shot onto the large net and exploded in an instant, turning back into a dark and eerie profound yin ghost chi. The Shen yin ghost chi was swept away by the emerald green light that surged out of the big net, and it immediately dissipated in the void. The thousands of faint and illusory profound yin arrow shadows were all caught by the dark green net that was spread out, and then they were refined by the dark green light in the net. Outrageous. If I don't show them what I'm made of, they will think that I'm a pushover. The purple-robed girl waved her hand and the large net immediately shrunk and flew back into her hand. After keeping the large net, the purple-robed girl took out a purple jade whistle and blew it. Roar! Roar! When the fierce beasts in the forest heard the whistle, they immediately roared. The sound was deafening, and terrifying beast shadows rushed out from all directions. Not good. Beitang Yu and the others were shocked. Roar! A furious roar came from behind Beitang Yu. A huge black ape rushed over from the distance and slapped the tree trunk that Beitang Yu was standing on. Bang! The sound of wood splashing was heard. The large tree that needed several people to wrap their arms around was broken by the black ape's slap and fell down from the sky. Rumble! The large tree smashed into the forest, causing the ground to tremble. Branches and leaves fluttered in the air and the forest became chaotic. Swish! Beitang Yu leaped to the top of another big tree the moment the tree fell. This black ape had extraordinary strength. Even Beitang Yu was secretly startled. It must be known that the black ape only used the strength of its body to break the tree. The middle-aged man with the black saber on his back had his right hand fixed on the saber hilt the moment the fierce beasts appeared. At this time, a big golden bird was staring at him. This big bird looked like the legendary divine beast, the golden-winged roc. It had golden feathers, golden claws, and even its eyes seemed to be golden. Of course, if it really was a golden-winged roc, Beitang Yu and the others would have already been torn to pieces. The huge golden bird flew like a bolt of golden lightning, moving quickly in the sky. Shua! The big golden bird instantly approached the middle-aged man and a pair of sharp claws directly grabbed the top of his head. The claws looked like they were cast from gold and were suffused with a layer of golden light. If the claws hit him, it would definitely leave a few bloody holes on the top of the middle-aged man's head. Evil beast! The middle-aged man cursed and quickly dodged to the side. Clang! The black saber was instantly unsheathed and slashed towards the flying big golden bird. Peng! The air in front of the middle-aged man instantly exploded. A black saber light rushed out from his hand for hundreds of feet, as if it wanted to split the world into two halves. Under the black saber light, the trees collapsed one after another. Gwa! The big golden bird let out a cry and its flying speed suddenly increased to the limit. It rushed out from under the middle-aged man's terrifying saber light. Boom! The black saber light slashed down on the forest below. The earth shook, the soil suddenly rushed into the air, and the trees collapsed one after another. A hundreds of feet-long saber mark appeared in the forest. A few golden feathers floated down from the sky. The big golden bird seemed to be frightened by the middle-aged man's heaven-shaking saber light and fled far away. Hurry up and leave. At this time, everyone heard the anxious voice of Dongfang Big Brother. Right at this moment, a few incomparably powerful and ferocious auras surged out from the depths of the forest. Boom! 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 It was as if a huge creature was rushing out from the depths of the forest, causing the entire forest to shake. Everyone's expression changed. These fierce beasts were already difficult for them to deal with. If a few more king of fierce beasts came, then they would not be able to leave this place. Swish! 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 Silhouettes flashed, Dongfang Big Brother and the others hastily rushed back the way they came. Beitang Yi's cultivation was obviously the weakest among the four. He was entangled by the golden battle wolf and the single-horned snake, and it was difficult for him to get away. Upon seeing this, Beitang Yu immediately rushed down from the tree. She swept away the single-horned snake with a kick and blasted away the golden battle wolf with a punch. Then, she grabbed Beitang Yi and rushed out. Under the moonlit night, the four human cultivators were running on top of the trees in the forest as fast as the wind and lightning. Countless terrifying beast shadows were chasing from behind. The beast roars shook the entire forest. The other birds and beasts in the forest were frightened and fled in panic. Wherever they passed, the forest was in chaos. At this time, several terrifying beast shadows arrived near the purple-robed girl. They were hidden in the shadows of the forest. Each beast shadow was emitting a fiendish aura that could make one's heart palpitate. This was the frightening fiendish aura that could only be formed by slaughtering thousands of creatures. In this forest, there were obviously several terrifying vicious beast kings. And these vicious beast kings seemed to have been summoned by the purple-robed girl's whistle. The purple-robed girl stopped whistling. Then, she turned her head to look at Ji Yufei, who had fainted in the underbrush. She saw that Ji Yufei's body was shrouded in a black aura. His skin had turned into a purple-black color. If one looked carefully, they could see that there seemed to be something moving under Ji Yufei's skin. Faint and illusory ghost shadows constantly appeared on Ji Yufei's skin. His body was emitting a gloomy aura. Tiny black ice particles were forming around his body. It's hard to imagine that a person could not die even after thousands of ghosts and spirits rushed into his body. I have to take him back and study him. The purple-robed girl touched her chin and muttered to herself. After pondering for a moment, she whistled to summon the golden bird. Then, she jumped on the bird's back. The golden bird grabbed Ji Yufei, who was lying in the underbrush. It flapped its golden wings and soared into the sky, flying toward the depths of the forest. The terrifying beast shadows that were hidden in the shadows of the forest also quickly disappeared into the forest. Chapter 328. After Beitang Yu and the rest ran for a few dozen miles, they felt that the surrounding temperature was dropping rapidly. Ice and snow gradually appeared in their line of sight, and the countless beasts that were chasing them no longer chased them. They seemed to be roaring as they retreated. And they rushed out of the forest and entered the snowy forest. After running for a few dozen miles, they finally stopped on a snowy slope. What's going on? Why is there such a place here, and we didn't even know about it beforehand? The blade-carrying middle-aged man said with lingering fear. I think that there should be a spiritual vein under the ground there, Beitang Yu said. Spiritual vein? Everyone was shocked as they looked at Beitang Yu in disbelief. But thinking about it, it made sense. In the northern part of the northern Wei Empire that was covered in snow, there was a forest that could only be found in a warm climate. Thinking about this, the eyes of Dongfang first and the rest lit up. Spiritual veins. Places with spiritual veins were all spiritual lands with abundant spiritual energy. Cultivating in such a place would definitely yield twice the results with half the effort. Everyone knew what a spiritual land meant to an entire clan or sect. One had to know that spiritual lands with spiritual veins in the Tenglong continent had long been occupied by the major powers. Some of the highest-grade spiritual lands even had caves opened up in them. Spiritual lands or caves were the foundation of a sect, a family, or a power. Only with a foundation could one develop. Furthermore, cultivating in a spiritual land or cave with abundant spiritual energy was definitely faster than cultivating in other places. As a result, the sects and forces with spiritual lands or grotto heavens had an absolute advantage over those without. Cultivators who came from spiritual lands or grotto heavens were often stronger than their peers. Let's go back and think about it. Dongfang first looked at the other three and said. Although his tone was calm, it was difficult to conceal the excitement in his heart. There was no power that would not be tempted by a newly discovered spiritual land. All right. Beitang Yu and the rest nodded their heads and quickly disappeared into the snowy forest. At this time, what they needed to do was to send this news back to their families. The situation had already developed beyond their control, but there was no doubt that the Dongfang and Beitang families, as well as the forces behind the blade-carrying middle-aged man, would all send their true experts here. With the appearance of the spiritual land and Chu Ji slaughtering his way out of the far north demonic domain, it was destined that the northern Wei kingdom would no longer be peaceful. The truly powerful experts would gather in the northern reaches, and the competition between them would be incomparably intense. However, everything that was about to happen seemed to have nothing to do with Ji Yufei for the time being. Ji Yufei, who had fallen into a coma, was in a daze. Sometimes, he felt that he was riding on the clouds and roaming in front of the Nine Heavens Palace. Sometimes, he felt that he had fallen into an abyss. He was surrounded by ghosts and ghosts, as if there were countless devils and ghosts wandering around him, as if they wanted to swarm him and tear him to pieces. After an unknown period of time, Ji Yufei felt that his consciousness seemed to have returned. There seemed to be a mysterious force that pulled his wandering divine sense back. He slowly opened his eyes and felt a piercing pain in his eyes. He hurriedly closed his eyes. He knew that this was because he had not seen light for a long time, and his eyes were stimulated by the light. After his eyes adapted for a while, Ji Yufei could see a blurry scene in front of him. A slender figure appeared in his eyes. "You're finally awake. It seems that my method was effective." A crisp voice sounded in Ji Yufei's ears. It was like the song of a lark, pleasing to the ears. Ji Fei could hear the joy in the girl's voice. He finally saw the person in front of him clearly. It was a beautiful girl dressed in purple. Her features were exquisite to the extreme. She didn't seem to be very old, not even 20 years old. However, in the eyes of cultivators, being young or old meant nothing. Only having great strength was the most practical. Who are you? Why am I here? Ji Fei's voice was hoarse. It was as if he was walking in the desert and was extremely thirsty. Hihi, my name is Yanga. This is the secret realm of the Dan Ding. When the girl saw that Ji Fei had regained consciousness, she seemed to be very happy. It was as if she had done something very interesting. Secret realm of the Dan Ding? Where is this place? I've never heard of it. Ji Fei quickly searched his mind. However, he couldn't remember such a place in the Ting-Long continent. Hihi. I already said it's a secret realm. If everyone knew about it, it wouldn't be a secret realm. The girl dressed in purple, Yanga, said as she sat on a chair at the side. When Ji Fei saw the chair she was sitting on, he couldn't help but show a hint of surprise in his eyes. This was because he felt that the chair that the girl dressed in purple, Yanga, was sitting on, was actually carved out of the highest grade purple jade. The entire purple jade chair was flowing with a faint layer of purple light. It seemed to contain an endless amount of spiritual energy. It was very extraordinary. Ji Fei looked around again. He felt that the place he was in seemed to be a cave that was built out of jade. As far as his eyes could see, there were all kinds of jade that were flowing with a crystal clear light. The space wasn't big. It was only 5 or 6 feet in circumference. However, the walls seemed to be built out of a whole piece of white jade. Moreover, there were no cracks on the white jade walls. It was so smooth that one could see one's reflection. The jade chair, the jade table, and the bookshelf by the wall were all made out of the highest grade jade. Only in the middle of the room, there was a huge bronze cauldron that was more than 10 feet tall. In the entire room, it seemed that the bronze cauldron, which was still emitting traces of green smoke, was the only thing that wasn't made out of jade. Ji Fei couldn't help but exclaim at the generosity of the owner of this place. The highest grade jade usually contained spiritual energy. This was common knowledge in the world of cultivation. Jade that contained spiritual energy was very rare. However, the room in front of him seemed to be built entirely out of jade that contained spiritual energy. The spiritual energy in the entire room was very abundant. Sometimes, one could even use the naked eye to catch traces of spiritual light that were emitted from the spiritual energy. Now it's my turn to ask you. Who are you? Why are those guys chasing after you? The clear and melodious voice of the purple-clothed girl, Yanga, rang in Ji Fei's ears, causing him to come back to his senses. My name is Ji Fei. It's a long story. I have a grudge against those people. Ji Fei said. In front of this innocent girl, he didn't want to lie. Then I'll call you old Ji. Yanga smiled. Ji Fei only felt that his eyes lit up. This purple-clothed girl named Yanga was like a little fairy that didn't eat the food of the mortal world. When she smiled, it was like 100 flowers blooming at the same time. It was breathtaking. At least, that was what Ji Fei thought. However, he didn't have the slightest bit of blasphemy in his heart. Old Ji Fei smiled bitterly and asked, Am I very old? Hihi, you're not old. In fact, you're very old. Do you want to see what you look like now? The purple-clothed girl's face revealed a sly smile. Ah. Upon hearing this, Ji Fei couldn't help but be shocked. He only now realized that he didn't seem to notice anything strange about his body after he woke up. At this time, when the purple-clothed girl, Yanga, said this, his whole body became cold. He felt that he couldn't see inside his body. His divine sense seemed to be completely imprisoned by some kind of power. What's going on? He hurriedly looked at his body, and when his gaze landed on his arm, he was shocked. The skin on his arm was shriveled like the skin of an orange that had lost all of its moisture. It was wrinkled and shriveled. Not only his arms, but even his body was in the same condition. He was like an old man who was about to die. His body seemed to have aged to the extreme. At this time, the purple-clothed girl, Yanga, handed over a bronze mirror. How? How? How could this be? When Ji Fei saw his reflection in the mirror, his heart was shocked to the extreme. He was so excited that he almost fainted again. Ji Fei couldn't believe it. His reflection in the mirror was actually a white-haired old man. The wrinkles on his face were like ravines, filled with the traces of time. It was as if hundreds of years of his lifespan had been taken away and he had become a skinny old man. No wonder the purple-clothed girl called him Old Ji. It turned out that he was really old, the kind that couldn't be any older. Why is this happening? Ji Fei excitedly asked Yang. This girl in front of him definitely knew what had happened to his body. He wanted to know the reason. Only by knowing the reason could he solve the problem. Yang said, "There are countless evil spirits rushing into your body. If I didn't use the 18 soul-suppressing nails to suppress the evil spirits in your body, your blood would have been devoured by the evil spirits in your body. Your blood would have dried up and you would have died." That arrow. Ji Fei recalled that he had been struck by the arrow shot by the man with the ghost bow. What a vicious fellow. You and I cannot exist under the same sky. Ji Fei had never wanted to take revenge on a single person, or a group of people. Right now, he wanted nothing more than to kill his way to the Dongfang and Beitang families and completely erase these two cultivation worlds from this world. The people of the Dongfang and Beitang clans had repeatedly tried to harm him, causing Ji Fei's anger to soar to the 9 heavens. The hatred in his heart was so great that his eyes had turned red. "You look so scary." Yang couldn't help being alarmed when she saw Ji Fei's current appearance. "I'm sorry." Ji Fei realized he had lost control and slowly calmed down. But he swore to himself that he would definitely take revenge for this. Only then did Ji Fei realize that his body was actually pierced by 18 pitch-black iron nails. Each iron nail was the size of a chopstick and was deeply embedded in his body. Only a very short section of it was exposed outside his body. Ji Fei felt as if his body had become numb. He couldn't feel any pain, and he didn't even know what 18 soul-suppressing nails were. It was clear that the 18 soul-suppressing nails had suppressed the evil power of the profound yin ghost arrow, but at the same time, they had also completely sealed his divine sense. "Actually, you don't need to be too sad. You still have a chance to recover," Yang said. Chapter 329. Danding School was a sect that had long disappeared from the world of cultivation. It was a branch of Taoism. Legend had it that after the Great War between Taoists and demons 1,000 years ago, Danding School began to decline until it completely disappeared from the world of cultivation. From then on, Danding School became history. No one knew that Danding School would discover a spiritual land in the Northern Land. Later on, they moved to the Northern Land and established a Danding paradise. Danding School became a secluded sect. During his conversation with Yang Ji Fei learned some things about Danding School. Danding School was a sect that entered the Tao through pill cauldrons. This sect was best at alchemy. Using elixirs, they refined miraculous elixirs that could help cultivators increase their cultivation and help them break through the shackles of cultivation. Elixirs could allow people to be reborn. It could allow those who could not cultivate to enter the ranks of immortal cultivators. It could allow the stupid to become smart, and it could allow the dying to be reborn. The Tao of Pill Cauldron was a heaven-defying technique. Elixirs and elixirs could make the impossible possible. According to Yang she was already the last successor of the Pill Cauldron Gate and also the owner of the Pill Cauldron Heavenly Abode. Her cultivation shocked Ji Fei as she was about to break her core and condense her nascent soul. Moreover, Yang real age was only in her early 20s. Due to the help of the elixirs left behind by her master, her cultivation base had increased very quickly. However, the result of this increase in cultivation base was that her realm was not very stable. Apart from Yang there was no one else in Danding Paradise. On this day, after Ji Fei took a qi-gathering pill refined by Yang he immediately felt relaxed. He could even feel the qi-gathering pill turning into a stream of heat in his dantian and flowing throughout his body. The spiritual energy transformed from the qi-gathering pill was nourishing his old body. However, Ji Fei's body was like a leaking ball. Before long, the spiritual energy transformed from the qi-gathering pill would be devoured by the countless souls imprisoned in his body. The 9-nether blackbone bow was definitely an incomparably evil and terrifying ghostly weapon. Even though Ji Yufei's life force was incomparably vigorous, and he had the essence of the divine weapon refined into his blood and qi, the blood and qi in his body were still drying up day by day. The evil spirits and ghostly aura were devouring his life force, causing his life force to fade away at every moment. The qi-gathering pill could only replenish the lost life force in Ji Yufei's body, so that Ji Yufei could continue to live, and not die of his blood and qi being devoured by the yin spirits and ghost qi. Actually, this was also a risky move. Ji Yufei taking the qi-gathering pill was undoubtedly equivalent to using the spiritual energy of the pill to feed the ownerless spirits in his body. Those ownerless yin souls would continue to devour the spirit qi transformed from the qi-gathering pills, and the yin soul ghost qi would gradually become stronger. When the 18 soul-subduing nails on Ji Yufei's body could no longer suppress those yin souls, there would only be one outcome for Ji Yufei, and that was death. It was a beautiful morning, and Yang had already run off to God knows where. Ji Yufei walked out of the Immortal's cave. His body was trembling, and he looked exactly like an old man whose body was in decline. With a head full of white hair, wrinkled skin, and emaciated body, Ji Yufei's body no longer had that exuberant life force. His body was like a withered old tree that had lost its vitality, and it looked like it would collapse at any time. Ji Yufei already knew that the Danding School's Immortal's Cave was built in the belly of a jade mountain. Below the jade mountain was a spirit vein, and around the jade mountain, there was a qi-gathering array laid by the Danding School. The qi-gathering array could not only gather the spirit qi from all directions, but it could also restrain the spirit qi emitted by the jade mountain's spirit vein, preventing it from spreading. This is really a good place. Ji Yufei stood outside the entrance of the Immortal's Cave and looked around. He didn't even breathe, but was inhaling and exhaling the spirit qi. The spirit qi here was really too thick, and he could even see the colorful green lights floating between the flowers and trees. Ji Yufei soon discovered that the other places on the mountain seemed to have been reclaimed into a square of spiritual fields, and the spiritual fields were planted with spiritual herbs. Purple gold ginseng, fire dragon grass, scarlet fruit. Ji Yufei recognized a few spiritual herbs, but he had never seen most of the spiritual herbs planted in the spiritual fields. Even in the ancient books that he had read in the sect, there were no relevant records about them. Every spiritual herb was surrounded by spirit qi, and under the nourishment of sufficient spirit qi, each spiritual herb was extraordinary, and seemed to have matured for hundreds of years. Ji Yufei sat in front of the Immortal's Cave and looked up at the rising sun. He couldn't help but feel a myriad of emotions in his heart. A few days ago, he was still a young expert with extremely lofty ideals. He was thinking about how to revitalize the Green Spirit Peak, and how to pass on the Green Spirit Peak's orthodoxy. But now, with his deteriorating body, it was difficult for him to even walk down the mountain. Ji Yufei thought a lot, looking back on the path of his growth until now. He was bullied on Taishen Mountain, and then he was proud at the 9 Vein trials. Then he went to the virtual sky world, and then he escaped from the Devil's territory in the far north. It seemed that he never really stopped to rest. Suddenly, Ji Yufei felt a little tired, not physically, but mentally. The path of the strong was not easy to walk. It was full of thorns and bumps, and one careless mistake could lead to injury or even death. Looking at the beautiful scenery in front of him, the floating clouds in the sky, and the red-crowned cranes and spiritual birds soaring in the sky, Ji Yufei felt an unprecedented peace in his heart. There was no fighting here, no mutual deception, no intrigue, and no need to always be on guard against the attacks of enemies hiding in the dark. This was a pure land, a paradise outside of the world. He didn't know how long he sat on the white jade steps in front of the cave. Suddenly, Ji Yufei saw a figure flash on the bamboo path at the foot of the mountain. A purple figure walked out of the bamboo forest. "You look good today." Soon, Yang arrived in front of Ji Yufei. Ji Yufei stretched lazily, then stood up and said, "Have you found a way to cure me?" Ji Yufei was very direct. "Hehe, it's not difficult to cure you, but..." Yang wanted to say something but stopped. A trace of imperceptible cunning flashed in her black jewel-like eyes. Ji Yufei could no longer keep calm. He hurriedly asked, "But what?" What are your concerns? Just say it. Ji Fei was always thinking about how to revitalize his deteriorating body. However, he knew that unless he could dispel the yin and ghost aura in his body, there might be a glimmer of hope. Hee. Why are you in such a hurry? I will definitely cure you. Don't worry. Yang patted Ji Fei's shoulder and said. In fact, she was already calculating in her heart. Then when do we start? Ji Fei was very anxious. He couldn't wait to get out of his current predicament. His deteriorating body had almost made him lose the will to fight. When do you want to start? Yang looked at Ji Fei and asked with a smile. Of course, the sooner the better, Ji Fei said. Yang rubbed her chin and took a few steps. She pondered for a moment and said, I'll say this in advance. That method is a bit extreme. If you can't stand it, I can stand it. As long as it can revitalize my body, I can stand anything, Ji Fei said firmly as he looked at Yang. You said it. Don't scold me when the time comes, Yang said with a serious face, which was rare for her. She looked at Ji Fei and said. In fact, her heart was already blooming with joy. She was even fantasizing about Ji Fei's interesting look in her little head. I know. My great aunt, I can't thank you enough. Why would I scold you? Ji Fei quickly promised Yang. All right then. Come with me, Yang said and walked down the mountain. Hey. Wait a minute. How can I keep up with you in this state? Ji Fei said awkwardly. His body was now extremely weak. He panted after taking a few steps. If he were to accidentally roll down the white jade steps, it would be too embarrassing. Oh, that's easy, Yang said and walked to Ji Fei's side. She reached out and grabbed Ji Fei's right arm. Then, she went down the mountain. Ji Fei felt a force coming from Yang's hand and enveloping him. His feet didn't seem to touch the ground at all. He floated down the mountain like a cloud. Soon, Yang brought Ji Fei from the Cauldron Cave mansion to the foot of the mountain. They passed through the bamboo forest and crossed a small bridge. Yang and Ji Fei headed towards a valley in the Cauldron Cave mansion. The scenery in the Cauldron Cave mansion was beautiful. Every mountain peak and forest was beautiful. Under the small bridge, there was a spirit spring that flowed out and converged into a small stream. Spirit fields were distributed between the mountain stream and the bamboo forest. They could be seen everywhere. The surroundings were full of vitality. The unique fragrance of spirit medicine entered Ji Fei's nose from time to time, making him feel refreshed. Walking into the valley, Ji Fei found that this small valley was a completely different scene. There were no spirit fields planted with spirit medicine, nor was there any emerald green vegetation. It was as if they had entered another space. The small valley wasn't big, but it was barren. Ji Fei felt that the temperature in the small valley was much higher than outside the valley. Rocks could be seen everywhere on the ground. Yang brought Ji Fei directly into the depths of the small valley. There, Ji Fei finally understood why there was such a barren land in the Cauldron Cave mansion. In the depths of the valley, there was a high platform made of white jade. On the high platform, there was an ancient bronze cauldron. The ancient cauldron was more than 6 meters tall. There were ancient patterns carved on it. The entire ancient cauldron emitted a simple and ancient aura. Yang brought Ji Fei up the white jade high platform to the front of the ancient bronze cauldron. She waved her hand and the ancient cauldron's lid immediately flew up.